Chapter 94. Lucy frowned and said, "You two, this isn't a good idea. If our 4 Monster Hunters teams are together, there will be more than 20 people. We'll be a big target, but it will easily attract strong enemies." Yang Wenjiao smiled and said, "Brother Lu's words are wrong. We don't have to stick together. We can just help each other." Long Haochen saw that the other monster hunters had already entered the city and hurriedly said, "Since that's the case, let's all enter the city together. If we encounter danger, let's notify each other with a long whistle. Help each other. Change equipment." The last 3 words were directed at his companions. Thus, under the dumbfounded gazes of the other 3 Monster Hunters teams, the 21 general-grade Monster Hunters, who were originally dressed in a full set of armor, suddenly turned around and put on glory-grade equipment that emitted strong spiritual power fluctuations. Among them, the one that shocked everyone the most was naturally Long Haochen himself. The dark golden glory sacred armor and glory sacred shield, together with the brilliance of blue rain and hibiscus of light, these 3 glory-grade equipment gave people an incomparable shock. In particular, after the glory sacred armor and glory sacred shield were equipped together, they faintly emitted a layer of dark golden luster that dyed the whole body. The set ability, Glory, had already taken shape. Moreover, Long Haochen directly threw the light punishment to Hanyu. He alone took out 4 glory-grade equipment. Of the other 6 members of the 21st General-Grade Demon Hunt Squad, apart from Chen Inger, who was hugging the Piglet McDull, who didn't change her equipment, the others all had at least 1 glory-grade equipment. They were all new monster hunters. Seeing the equipment on Long Haochen and the others, who wouldn't be envious? Yang Wenjiao swallowed his saliva in envy. At the same time, his heart was secretly aching. This was all the merit points they won that day. They lost. What a great loss. Long Haochen also knew that they were acting in such a high-profile manner. But what they were about to face was the chaotic situation within Southern Guard Pass. What they needed to do was not to kill as many enemies as possible, but to survive in this chaotic battlefield. Under such circumstances, how could he hold back? Let's go into the city. The 4 teams quickly entered the city. Although Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi had not made their stance clear, they chose to follow Long Haochen's command. It was just that they weren't as thorough as Lu Shi. The 2 teams of monster hunters that Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi were in had at least maintained their original formation. But Lu Shi had their general level number 22 monster hunters directly disrupted their formation, fused with the 21st general tier monster hunters. The shield warrior, Dian Yin, was at the front. He moved to the flank of Long Haochen, while Lin Xian moved to the other side of Long Haochen. Lu Shi, by Xiaomao, and King Yi bluntly moved to the center of the team. In any case, with the addition of Lin Xian and Dian Yin, the space within the formation had also increased. The assassin, Han Daosi, hid in the back. His intention was obvious. He wanted to cooperate with Hanyu to defend. Long Haochen walked in the front. Kair also climbed onto his back. Originally, according to Long Haochen's original intention, he wanted to cover her in the brilliant sacred armor. But Kair vehemently refused. She only agreed to let Long Haochen carry her on his back. Although she had lost her 4 senses, she was still the Saint Maiden of Samsara. She had grown up under the torment of the spiritual stove of Samsara. She hadn't completely lost her combat strength. At this time, Kair quietly leaned on Long Haochen's back. She seemed to be completely weightless. Her long legs were wrapped around Long Haochen's waist, and her hands were wrapped around his neck. She did her best to not affect Long Haochen's ability to move. Although the knight and the assassin had worked together many times, this was the first time the other monster hunters had seen them enter the battlefield like this. However, no one would question anything. They had all seen Kair's strength. If she hadn't withdrawn, it would have been hard to say who the champion of the monster hunter selection would have been. They entered the Southern Guard Pass. Long Haochen subconsciously raised his head to look at the sky. At this time, a marvelous scene appeared in the sky. All sorts of magnificent lights violently distorted and fluctuated in the air. It was like countless brilliant fireworks had solidified in the blue sky. Of course, these weren't fireworks. Rather, they were the most intense part of the battle. The true super experts of both sides were there. Although they couldn't see the situation in the sky, Long Houchin could faintly feel that Han Q and the others had arrived. The current situation in the sky could be considered evenly matched. At least for a short period of time, the Temple League side could still hold on. After all, they had entered the southern guard pass from the rear. The demons hadn't killed their way here yet. The entire city gave off a cold and bleak feeling. There wasn't a single civilian on the streets. There were only reinforcements that had just entered the city. In the distance, many houses were burning fiercely. The smell of burnt flesh and blood wafted over. It was nauseating. After Yang Wenjiao and Duan led their teams into the city, they immediately split into two sides. They lagged behind. They maintained a triangular formation with Long Houchin's team. At this time, they had some doubts in their hearts. In any case, Lu Shi's team had been promoted to general level. However, Lu Shi was completely willing to integrate his team into Long Houchin's team. In other words, he had completely handed over the initiative of his team. It could even be said that he had become a vassal of the 21st general level monster hunters. This wasn't something that could be explained by trust. Long Houchin summoned Hao Yue and placed him in the core position of the team. Chening, and Lin Exen naturally sat on Hao Yue's back. As for Lu Shi and the others, they didn't receive such good treatment. They willingly stayed by Hao Yue's side. As the team continued to advance, the smell of blood in the air became thicker. However, when they saw the situation on the battlefield, they couldn't help but tremble. It wasn't fear, but a trembling that came from the depths of their souls. It was too tragic. For any war, the most difficult and cruel stage was when it entered the urban warfare stage, especially when there was no possibility of subduing the other side. They would fight to the last man standing. The demon army had a clear advantage. Whether it was in the air or on the ground, they occupied at least 70% of the offensive. The entire middle section of the Southern Guard Pass was covered by the demon army. The Temple League soldiers were much fewer in number. However, they used their bodies. They even used their teeth to fiercely resist the invasion of the demon army. Thick blood dyed the battlefield red. Whether it was in the air or on the ground, it even felt a little moist because of the blood flowing. The dense spiritual energy fluctuations caused the various magic elements in the battlefield to become restless. Broken limbs could be seen flying through the air at any time. Roars, screams, and the mournful cries of death filled with the stench of blood were all shocking to the hearts of the onlookers. Under such an atmosphere and scene, whether it was the calm Long Houchin or the combat-ready Sima Xian, everyone's eyes gradually turned red. All the fear was dispelled by the frenzied, fighting spirit surging from their bodies. Sacrificing one's life and spilling one's blood was necessary to create an atmosphere. At this moment, there was no doubt that the atmosphere had reached its peak. Go! Long Houchin roared and took the lead, charging forward with large strides. However, as the captain, he still maintained a certain level of rationality at this moment. Everyone maintained the formation. This was the only order he could give at this moment. Puffed! A human soldier's body was torn to shreds by a furious, bloodthirsty demon. Blood and organs flew in all directions, and a small gap appeared in the human defensive line. 4 or 5 furious, bloodthirsty demons took advantage of this opportunity to charge over. This was also the point of entry that Long Houchin had chosen to enter the battlefield. As the saying went, a dry dam would be destroyed by an ant's nest. Once the enemy broke through the formation, it was very likely that things would get out of hand. Charge! Long Houchin exerted force from his feet and charged forward with large strides. At the same time, a golden light flashed and Yu Ting had already flown out, floating diagonally above him. Golden halos rippled from Long Houchin's feet. Faith Halo, Blessing of Protection, True Shot Halo. The 3 halos instantly enveloped everyone in the 21st and 22nd General teams. Violent, bloodthirsty demons were one of the craziest races among the demons. The violent, bloodthirsty demon that had just torn apart a human soldier at the very front saw Long Houchen charging over. It immediately roared, and the thick spikes on its arms charged towards Long Houchen. Boom! Glorious Holy Shield's branch energy Holy Shield was activated. At the same time, Long Houchen's shield was also activated. The newly obtained glory-grade equipment shone brightly as soon as it appeared. A layer of condensed white light appeared on the surface of the shield, turning into a huge holy hexagram. Long Houchen's charge suddenly turned into an assault. Amidst the loud noise, he collided head-on with the mad demon. The huge body of the mad demon was actually sent flying by him and collided with the other mad demons behind it. At this moment, blue rain and hibiscus of light in Long Houchen's right hand brought with them a dazzling light that filled the sky. Like quicksilver, they enveloped the mad demons. Demon destruction flash. Ear-piercing PU sounds rang out. Due to the rippling light, the demon annihilation flash possessed a powerful penetrative power. How could those mad demons possibly dodge such a swift attack? Their bodies trembled as they endured the demon annihilation flash. Blood splattered from their bodies as soon as they touched. Don't forget, Long Houchen was not fighting alone. A golden red cross slashed out. Hell's Rose, who had entered the 5th rank and was riding the Rose Unicorn, showed her might. Lin Xion's pair of flaming greatswords erupted with tyrannical combat power under the influence of her light spiritual energy. When Long Houchen first taught Light Ripple, Lin Xion and Wang Yuan had a hard time learning it. However, they persevered and did not give up like Dian Yin and Han Daosi. In the end, during the time that Long Houchen was in the Moon Demon Palace, these two girls had managed to learn this powerful support skill. And this skill of Long Houchen would definitely benefit them for the rest of their lives. At this moment, Lin Xion's crisscross slash was unleashed under the effect of rippling light. She was a punishment paladin. Attack was everything to her. A bloodthirsty, violent demon that was trembling under the demon-killing flash was instantly chopped into 4 pieces. The rippling light caused Lin Xion's attack power to at least double. Moreover, she had not only broken through to the 5th rank, but had also taken the Holy Spirit pill. Her internal spiritual energy was more than 3,000. Compared to when she completed the Howling Terror Cave mission, there was a qualitative leap. She was not the only one who attacked at the same time. Sima Xian could not hold back any longer. When Long Houchen knocked away the mad demon, his huge vigor ball of light flew out. A piercing dark gold light flashed in the air. When a huge metal ball flew out, even Long Houchen's vision was blocked by its size. What happened next was like the effect of hitting a bowling ball. The remaining 4 violent, bloodthirsty demons were all sent flying with an explosive roar. The bloodthirsty mad demon that bore the brunt of the attack was the most unlucky. It became the first sacrifice of the vigor ball of light. Its body was directly blown into minced meat. Not even a complete skeleton was left behind. The other bloodthirsty mad demons were also heavily injured. They were taken care of by Yi Jun's spatial magic in the air. Sima Xian laughed wildly. Metal ball against meatball. How refreshing. In the New Wave clan, the ranks were Mad Demon, Bloodthirsty Mad Demon, and Crimson Blood Demon. Although the Bloodthirsty Mad Demon's strength could not be compared to the strongest Crimson Blood Demon, its cultivation was equivalent to a 5th rank human warrior. 4 or 5 bloodthirsty mad demons together. How powerful would their attack be? However, in front of Long Houchen's team of 13, even with only 4 people exerting their strength, the battle was easily settled. There was a powerful knight blocking the front, a punishment paladin with terrifying explosive power, and that priest. Not to mention a spatial magic general. Just like Lu Shi said, everyone had worked together before. Naturally, they had a tacit understanding. Every member of the 22nd General Grade Demon Hunt Squad took their positions very seriously. That was to start from the support General Level 21st Monster Hunters. Never attack. Full support. Everything was under Long Houchen's command. After killing the bloodthirsty mad demon, Long Houchen did not have a hint of joy on his face. The baptism of the enemy's blood did not make him crazy. Instead, he calmed down. With another charge skill, he forcibly blocked the gap that was just opened. Blue rain and hibiscus of light in his right hand were fully released, blocking all the demon army that was rushing in this direction. The few bloodthirsty mad demons before were the strongest demons at the front. Behind them were the ordinary mad demons of the Shubo clan. In front of Long Houchen's demon destruction flash, these ordinary mad demons were not enough. One demon destruction flash killed at least a dozen mad demons. The pressure on the front suddenly lightened, changed to a defensive formation. No one is allowed to advance. Long Houchen shouted. The team's formation also changed under his command. Lin Xian and Wang Yuanyuan were on Long Houchen's left, while Sima Xian and Din Yan were on Long Houchen's right. The five of them lined up in a row, like a wall blocking in front of the Devil Race army. The magic professions at the back also began to quickly chant incantations. Lin Xian became the busiest person. Although he did not know how to attack, he was good at defense. Elemental fire shields quickly fell on the five people in front. From the first excellent fire shield to the end of the fifth, it actually took only a short 10 seconds. Not to mention grade 5, even grade 6 fire magicians might not be able to do this. The fire cloud crystal staff in Lin Xian's hand had completely changed. Now, he called it the fire crystal staff. Anyway, he did not admit that this name was to save trouble. The staff was bright silver, and the original fire cloud crystal was completely wrapped in it. Only the top of the staff was about a foot long. Exquisite magic patterns were engraved on the entire staff. In order not to waste any fire cloud crystal, the master who made the staff used mithril mixed with some special metals to make it. Most of the fire cloud crystal was covered in it. At the same time, he inscribed this staff with 3 enchantments. High-quality materials were indispensable to making powerful equipment. The quality of Lin Xian's fire cloud crystal was so good that it was enough to support 3 enchantments. Among these 3 enchantments, the one that made Lin Xian the most satisfied was the one that reduced the chanting time of fire magic below the grade by half. It was called a fire spell. The other 2 were added attack spells to make up for his lack of attack magic. But there was a limit to the number of times he could use them every day, so he would not use them easily. But they were all grade 6 fire magic. Therefore, his fire crystal staff was already close to the legendary level. At this moment, relying on the fire curse attached to the fire crystal staff, Shifeng could cast elemental fire shield with ease. His control over the fire element was already quite impressive, and with the buff from the fire crystal staff, he was able to wield the elemental fire shield as he pleased. His entire body was covered in a layer of bright red flames, making him the most dazzling among mages. Chuning was the opposite of the dazzling Lin Xian. The girl sat directly on the back of Hao Yue, then raised her right fist and shouted, "Go, go. Kill them." Well, yes, that was what she did. It was not that she did not want to participate in the battle, but it was a problem of her position in the team. Madol's power was based on the consumption of magic crystals. Moreover, Madol could not fight forever. Once he was injured, no matter how many magic crystals he ate, his strength would be greatly reduced. Therefore, this kind of expendable strength was used as the team's reserve strength. It would only be used at the crucial moment. Thus, Chen Inger, who was tightly protected in the core, could only shout out slogans. Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi's team also split up, looking for opportunities to directly join the battle. The addition of the 4 teams of monster hunters immediately improved the situation on the battlefield, especially when a few mages in the team released a few powerful magic spells, giving the defending army some buffer time. However, the attack of the demons was extremely fierce. Not only were there many of them, but almost all of them were intermediate and high-level demons. Unexpectedly, not a single dual-bladed demon appeared. Close combat, range combat, and aerial combat. Under the heavy pressure from the 3 sides, the human defense line was still in danger. Long Houchen's team's defense was the most stable. As the team's core, Long Haochen's brilliant holy shield was placed in front of him. He was not greedy and focused on defense. He did not need to worry about the demons below grade 5 at all. Sima Xian beside him could take care of them. It had to be said that after the addition of 2 brilliant equipment that suited him, Sima Xian's role in the team could be said to have undergone a qualitative change. The Vigor Pill of Light was really too suitable for this guy. The Crushing Branch could completely crush the intermediate and low-level demons. Every time it attacked, it could take the lives of at least a few demons, and none of them had a complete corpse. Demons also had a certain level of intelligence. Even the low-level demons had survival instincts. The power of Sima Xian's Big Iron Ball was so fierce that the intermediate and low-level demons subconsciously avoided it. Therefore, it was naturally much easier for them to defend. However, it was also because of their strong performance that they attracted the attention of the demons. A huge blood-red figure suddenly descended from the sky. Its target was Sima Xian. The speed of this blood-red figure was extremely fast. Sima Xian was killing to his heart's content. Suddenly, he felt a strong smell of blood above his head, accompanied by a dense chill. Although his Vigor Pill of Light was very powerful, it also had a flaw. Because of its terrifying weight, it would affect its speed when used. If he tried to defend now, it would be good if he could block the Vigor Pill of Light above his head. However, Sima Xian did not seem to feel the threat above his head. The Vigor Pill of Light in his hand once again flew out, smashing several dog-headed demons that were rushing over. With a flash of white light, the blood-red figure in the sky suddenly changed direction when it was less than 5 meters away from Sima Xian. The attack that should have been aimed at Sima Xian was met with a shield shining with a hexagram. Brilliant Holy Shield, Divine Block. Of course, Sima Xian was not unaware that the attack from the sky could even endanger his life. In the face of this threat, he was able to remain indifferent. This was because of his trust. Naturally, Long Haochen would not let his partner down. He activated the Saint's spiritual stove and directly drew the attack from the sky to his body. Amidst the ear-piercing rumble, Long Haochen slightly retreated half a step. His body flashed with a golden light, and the blue rain and hibiscus of light in his right hand took advantage of the situation and slashed out. He did not hold anything back, directly activating the Holy Sword branch energy that he had stored by relying on flower grafting wood. Moreover, it also carried the power of rippling light. The 3 skills, as one naturally would not be shot without a target. Through the strength of the opponent's attack, Long Haochen could judge the opponent's strength. After blocking the enemy's attack, the Holy Shield on the brilliant Holy Shield almost collapsed. Divine Block was not able to completely neutralize the force, and it even made Long Haochen retreat half a step. 7th step. Without a cultivation base of a 7th step, how could he force Long Haochen to do this? At this time, the bloody figure also appeared. His appearance was very familiar to the 21st and 22nd Captain Grade Monster Hunters. It was the main enemy of the Wailing Howling Caves mission, the demon. Moreover, the demon in front of them was impressively a 7th step demon lord. It was also the main culprit that caused Kai Air to fall into a state where she lost her 4 senses. The demon lord held a bloody heavy sword in his hand. He was directly blocked by Long Haochen's divine block. At the same time that the wings on his back controlled his balance, Long Haochen's blue rain and hibiscus of light had already slashed over. Not only that, Lin Xian, who was on the other side of Long Haochen, also followed up with an attack. It was also a glorious sun slash, but the glorious sun slash shone with the flames of the sun and had light ripples. Lin Xian's pair of flaming greatswords were also extraordinary. Although they were not glory-grade equipment, they were still existences of the spiritual demon grade. In addition to her own power of more than 3,000 spiritual energy points, the speed at which she used the flames of the sun was twice as fast as an ordinary knight. The demon lord subconsciously took half a step back and blocked with the bloody greatsword in his hand. Long Haochen's attack was 1 step faster than Lin Xian's. The evolved blue rain, the sharpness of hibiscus of light, and the power of the holy sword of light ripples were undoubtedly displayed at this moment. In the dazzling brilliance of the glorious sun slash, the bloody greatsword in the demon lord's hand was directly cut in half. Although Long Houchin also took half a step back due to the huge recoil, he could not continue his attack. However, Lin Xion's glorious sun slash landed heavily on the demon lord's body. The demon overlord let out a blood-curdling screech. An intense red light rippled from his body, forcing Lin Xion to retreat. However, an astonishing wound was left on his left shoulder and chest. Moreover, the strong corrosive effect of the light element on his body of darkness caused a plume of smoke to rise. 3 spells fell on the demon lord almost at the same time. Moreover, none of them were offensive spells. The wind binding spell, the fire flame cage spell, and the light binding spell. The 3 skills only had one purpose, and that was to restrain the demon lord. The levels of these 3 skills were not considered high, but after all, they were 3 elements at the same time. Moreover, the light binding spell itself had a suppressive effect on the attributes of the demon lord. Even if the demon lord wanted to break free from these 3 spells, it would still take him more than a second. It was also at this moment that the demon lord suddenly felt a strong threat coming from the front. He was at a disadvantage because of his equipment. Even with the strength of the 7th grade, he had no other equipment on him except for the broken bloody greatsword. At this moment, the demon lord's powerful combat talent made him make the best choice. He did not retreat, nor did he even try to break free from the 3 restraining spells. Instead, his whole body shone with a strong dark red light. The dark red that erupted from the demon lord's body made his body instantly transparent, especially his torso, which was transparent like a dark red gem. This was the 7th grade elemental body. Whether it was humans or demons, they had the corresponding ability to instantly enhance their attack and defense abilities. At this time, the demon lord chose to increase his defense. With a loud bang, a huge shield like a heavy axe, and a huge metal ball hit at the same time. With the help of the elemental body, the demon lord punched out with both fists and hit the 2 tyrannical weapons. 2 muffled groans sounded at the same time. Wang Yuan and Sima Xian each took 3 steps back. The bodies of the 21st General Monster Hunters and the others flashed with golden light at the same time. The soul chain and life sharing shared the damage suffered by the 2 of them. However, the demon lord did not feel good either. His upper body was blasted up, and his fists were badly mutilated. Wang Yuan's cultivation had been enhanced by the Holy Spirit Pill, and her internal spiritual power had long exceeded 3,500. The Divine Giant Soul Shield's anti-magic effect was even more powerful. Moreover, she and Sima Xian used Light Ripple at the same time, coupled with the crushing effect of the vigorous Light Pill. Even a 7th grade demon lord could only protect himself and could not effectively fight back. However, at this moment, a trace of fear appeared on the demon lord's ferocious face. A dazzling golden light came down from above, as if it was splitting the heavens and earth. What was more terrifying was that before he could break free from the 3 restraining spells, a strong pressure was produced in the air. The intense pressure made it impossible for the demon lord to escape even if he wanted to. The demon lord let out an ear-piercing scream, and dense dark red flames instantly appeared on his already damaged fists. This attack could be said to have used all of his strength. This was because he could clearly feel the fatal threat that the golden light brought. However, what shocked him was that the dark red flames from his fists were split into 2 by the earth-shattering golden light. The unparalleled sharpness directly slashed his fists. After all, the demon lord's cultivation was at the 7th grade. In the face of a life-and-death crisis, his body suddenly twisted with the help of the wings on his back. His body twisted strangely like a fried dough twist, and at the same time, the power of the elemental body erupted to the maximum. Puff! Blood burst out, and minced meat, broken limbs, and viscous black blood flew in all directions. Under that powerful attack, The demon lord's arms were completely shattered. However, while paying the price of his arms, he still managed to keep his life. One of the sharp horns on his head was cut off, and a piece of his skull flew out. His entire right shoulder was completely cut off. The flesh on one side of his body carried large amounts of blood in the air. To be able to produce such a terrifying attack, it was naturally Long Houchen's Azura Slash, which required him to use both hands and consumed as much as 1,000 spiritual power points. Moreover, it was the Azura Slash that rippled with light. The three binding spells from before were the tacit cooperation between Hao Yue and Long Houchen. Sima Xian and Wang Yuanyuan's attacks were just the icing on the cake. Long Houchen's Azura Slash was the real fatal attack. The appearance of the demon lord caused Long Houchen's originally calm eyes to instantly regain their red color. He seemed to have seen the culprit that caused Kai to lose her four senses again. When this Azura Slash was unleashed, his entire spirit and his dense, murderous aura perfectly combined, and he erupted with the most tyrannical attack in his history. At this moment, the importance of weapons and equipment could be seen. In terms of the number of powerhouses, humans were far inferior to the demons. Why were they able to fight against the demons for as long as 6,000 years? Not only were they not completely destroyed, but they were also gradually accumulating strength and gradually developing the possibility of a counterattack. It was because of the superior quality of weapons and equipment. Humans had magic cannons, all kinds of equipment production methods passed down from ancient times, and they had skilled craftsmen. What about the demons? The demons could not even solve the problem of eating, and they still needed to use war to reduce their population. It could be said that for the past 6,000 years, the overall strength of the demons did not increase much, while humans were steadily improving. If the powerful strength of the rank 7 demon lord could be matched with a set of glorious great equipment that was suitable for him, Long Houchen and the others might not be able to win even if they gathered the strength of 13 people. But at this moment, under Long Houchen's powerful weapons and skills, he was directly injured. A black figure instantly burst out from behind Long Houchen, rushing towards the heavily injured demon lord like a flash of black lightning. Her speed was so fast that she left a series of afterimages behind her. The demon lord subconsciously raised his remaining arm and forcefully gathered some spiritual power to throw a punch. However, the black figure suddenly became illusory in front of him. From where Long Houchen and the others were, the black figure suddenly split into two in the air, and a dark light quietly appeared behind the demon lord's head. If it was the demon lord at its peak, it could rely on its elemental body to block this attack. However, its elemental body had already been broken by Long Houchen's Azura Slash, so how much strength could it exert? What was even more shocking was that the black figure that was hit by the demon lord's punch suddenly became solid. And just like that, it rushed forward like lightning along the demon lord's arm. The two black figures instantly overlapped in the air, and if one was slightly further away, they would be able to see that a black light instantly turned into a black light spot on the demon lord's head. The demon lord's retreating body suddenly froze, and its raised right arm drooped down powerlessly. Its life aura was frantically flowing out, and it looked like it would not survive. The black figure tapped the demon lord's shoulder with the tip of her foot, causing it to fall to the ground, and she used the rebound force to instantly turn back. Long Houchen quickly raised his left hand, and a faint golden light lit up. He had previously used Azura Slash and temporarily put away the brilliant holy shield. At this moment, the sword was in his right hand, and his left hand just happened to be free. The black figure instantly landed on his right hand, and a fair little hand came into contact with his right hand. Long Houchen pulled and swung, and the black figure quietly disappeared behind his back. Only a pair of long legs reappeared at his waist. Without a doubt, the one who gave the demon lord the final blow was Kai Er. Although she had lost her four senses, it did not mean that Kai Er had lost her combat power. On the contrary, during these few months when she had lost her four senses, she did not feel lonely because of Long Houchen's company. She felt satisfied and quiet, and her strength had a breakthrough. The shadow doppelganger just now was already very different from the original one, and its attack power was a step higher. Long Houchin did not have the time to blame Kai Air now. Kai Air's timing was very good, and when he raised his left hand to release the light element, it was to give Kai Air, who only had feeling and touch, a lighthouse effect. The Demon Lord's death greatly intimidated the demons that were charging towards them. That was a level 7 powerhouse, but it only lasted a few breaths in the hands of Long Houchin and the others. Under the sudden drop in pressure, Long Houchin and the others actually temporarily lost their opponent. The war was in full swing, and the crazy killing did not decrease because of their participation, but instead became more and more intense. This was the main battlefield, and naturally, the new monster hunters were not the only ones joining in. The Grand Hunting teams, as reinforcements, also joined the battle from different directions. Every Monster Hunters team was made up of the Alliance's elites, and with their participation, it immediately caused the passive situation to gradually develop in the direction of balance. Furthermore, the 5,000 reinforcements from the Sixth Great Temple had also quickly joined the battle. Chapter 95. A large number of healing lights scattered in the air. Muti's group, healing, greatly boosted the morale of the southern fortress soldiers who were fighting hard. For a moment, the demons were unable to advance any further. "Boss, let's charge." Suddenly losing his opponent, Sima Xian's bloodthirsty eyes released a strong sense of unwillingness. Long Houchin thought for a moment and said, "Advance 30 meters, shuttle formation." Shuttle-shaped formation. As he spoke, he once again released the glorious holy shield and led his companions to charge forward. They could retreat at any time within 30 meters. Although the situation on the battlefield had changed, the demons' offensive was still fierce. Since they had entered the battlefield, they had to reduce the burden of their allies. Advancing 30 meters would make them the target of everyone, but they could also attract the demons to attack, which would naturally reduce the pressure on their allies. The 13 people, like a sharp blade, rushed forward along the wide street. Sima Xian was on the right side of Long Houchin. His ball of light had become the most advantageous offensive weapon. The powerful attack opened the way with a crushing momentum. The low-level demons could not stop them at all. Long Houchin also took the opportunity to release the spirit-gathering halo to help his companions recover their spiritual energy. The combat power of the 13 people fully erupted as they rushed into the demons' camp. Hanyu, who was in the rear, was very stable. With light reflection and the light punishment that Long Houchin gave him, he could attack and defend at the same time. Moreover, he focused his energy on defense. The defense of the rear was very stable. At this time, because of Lu Shi, the real Mu Huai, he did not need to worry about the problem of healing. In fact, Lu Shi only needed to cast a few enhancement spells for everyone and did not need to heal anything. The charge on Long Houchin's side was immediately met with a strong counterattack from the demons. The death of the Demon Lord had shocked the demon army, but at the same time, the death of Long Houchin's group also attracted the attention of the demon army. Several rank 6 and rank 7 demons rushed over and stood beside Long Houchin and the others. After advancing 30 meters, Long Houchin stopped. As the core of the team, he had to pay attention to the overall situation of the battlefield. The radiant sacred shield in his hand moved horizontally and vertically, coordinating with the saint's spiritual stove to draw the most powerful enemies to his side. With his sturdy defense, he didn't give them a chance to threaten his companions. Whether it was General Level number 21 or number 22, the two teams of monster hunters had gone through fire and water in the siege of the demon army. Therefore, they cooperated very well. More importantly, there was only one voice in both teams, and that was Long Houchin. Every command from Long Houchin would be carried out immediately. The 13 of them worked as one. No matter how the demon army attacked, they could still maintain a position 30 meters deep into the enemy's battle formation. Boom! 3 dark purple rays of light hit Long Houchin's radiant sacred shield and smashed it. Long Houchin also took a small step back. Not far away, 3 particularly tall demon eye warlocks concentrated their firepower on him. Because of the large number of demon armies attack, these demon eye warlocks didn't need to worry about Long Houchen's attack being able to threaten them. They all had 10 eyes on their heads, and their cultivation bases were all at the early rank 6. And in front of Long Houchen, there was still a tyrannical rank 6 demons, the Golden Dual Blade Demon. The Golden Dual Blade Demon's strength was logically far inferior to the Demon Lord's, but its speed was faster than the Demon Lord's, and it was exceptionally cunning. Once it was pulled by Long Houchen's Saint's spiritual stove, it would immediately turn around and withdraw, not giving Long Houchen and the others the opportunity to concentrate their attacks. Long Houchen couldn't advance rashly, so he didn't have much of a way to deal with it. Apart from the Golden Dual Blade Demon, Long Houchen had to face an even greater threat. This threat came from the sky. From time to time, it swooped down towards him with an especially huge dual-headed demon vulture, its dark and fire dual magic unceasingly pouring down. The majority of Long Houchen's attention was drawn by this dual-headed demon vulture. Every time it launched an attack, he had to use the Saint's spiritual stove at the first instant to guide the dual-headed demon vulture's attack onto himself. In this way, he alone had to bear the collective attack of a rank 7 and 4 rank 6 demons. Even with Long Houchen's strength, it was still somewhat difficult to bear. However, it was also under this kind of formidable pressure that Long Houchen displayed his exceptionally valiant strength. In the eyes of his companions, he was like an eternally indestructible fortress. No matter how the enemy attacked, he would always stand tall and unyielding. The defensive power of the glorious sacred shield and glorious sacred armor were displayed to the extreme by Long Houchen. Sometimes, when the shield was too late to defend, he would use his own body to block the enemy's attack. The 2 rank 6 defensive skills attached to the equipment played an extremely important role, allowing him to stand tall and not fall. He was actually able to stand there without falling, and he didn't even take half a step back. Long Houchen's reflexes were trained in the owl ant's burrow. Therefore, even if the danger was already close, he could still respond accordingly. His entire body was like a ball of golden light, moving within a very small area, yet he was able to receive all of the enemy's attacks on his own body. Of course, if he was alone, he still wouldn't be able to withstand so many powerful attacks. Behind him, he still had the powerful support of his companions. Hao Yue's 3 heads split up the work. Xiao Hua and Xiao Qing were in charge of attacking the especially powerful 2-headed demon vulture in the air, preventing it from attacking Long Houchen with its full strength. Xiao Guang, on the other hand, was continuously casting buffs and defensive shields on Long Houchen. Apart from Hao Yue, there was also Yi Ting's powerful support ability. It must be known that although Long Houchen's glorious set had the glorious skill to conserve spiritual energy, Long Houchen's Holy Shield and Holy Spirit Guard were almost constantly being used. His total spiritual energy was only 4,000, but it seemed as if it would never be used up. Powerful skills were cast one after another, yet he never showed any signs of exhaustion. Moreover, because of Yiting, Long Houchen's ordinary attacks would occasionally turn into Holy Sword, Glorious Sun Slash, and other tyrannical attacks. Not only could he defend against the 5 powerful enemies, but he could also occasionally slay some low-level and mid-level monster hunters. Luo, she had already started casting healing spells at the back, mainly on the members of the Captain level number 22 monster hunters. This wasn't because he was biased, but because the 7 members of the Captain level number 21 monster hunters weren't injured at all. Even if someone was attacked, the 7 members of the life-sharing soul chain would share the burden. As long as Long Houchen wasn't shaken, it was almost impossible for the enemy to truly harm their team. Han Yu's performance at the back was also remarkable. The power of light reflection and light's punishment was quite strong, and the 2 glorious sets of equipment made him even more powerful. He could even temporarily hold off grade 6 enemies. After all, he was purely a guardian knight. Apart from being inferior to Long Houchen in terms of cultivation and skills, he wasn't much weaker than Long Houchen. The Southern Pass was a huge city. Due to the invasion of the demons, the battlefield could be said to be everywhere. Long Houchen's team was originally located in the central area of the city. In just a short while, the commotion on their side attracted the attention of their allies. On this side, the strongest demon was at the 7th rank. Similarly, on the human side, the strongest was only at the 7th rank. It was unknown if the powerhouses of grade 8 and above had discussed this beforehand, but they didn't appear in the street battles. Of course, anyone with a discerning eye would know that the powerhouses who could reach the 8th order were currently fighting to the death in the sky. The battle over there was even more crucial. If one side gained an absolute advantage in the sky, it would mean the end of the battle. Since the strongest enemy in the street battles was only grade 7, then most of the battles were between grade 3 and grade 7 powerhouses. Long Houchen's team had already defeated several grade 6 and above demons. How could they not attract attention? Moreover, they were currently attracting the attention of 5 grade 6 and above demons. What powerful monster hunters! Were they commander level? Many people had doubts in their hearts. However, if they were commander level monster hunters, why didn't any of them use their spiritual energy wings? Long Houchen naturally didn't know the emotions of his allies. At the moment, he was under considerable pressure. Under pressure, his own potential was squeezed out bit by bit, but his spiritual energy consumption was also very high. This situation had to be changed. Otherwise, if it continued, his spiritual energy would be exhausted sooner or later. Should he retreat? If he retreated, the pressure would definitely be reduced. However, if he retreated just like that, wouldn't his previous efforts be in vain? The pressure on his allies would increase again. It would be good if the number of enemies could be reduced. Although the two-headed demon vulture in the air was annoying, there was only one of it. If Long Houchen could focus on dealing with it, even if he couldn't take it down, at least he could ensure that his team members wouldn't be attacked. However, the most annoying thing was the 3 10-eyed demon eye warlocks in the distance. Their attack power was extremely powerful. The 3 demon eye warlocks' combined attack could break Long Houchen's holy shield once. Moreover, he had to use his god domain to barely block it. As a result, Long Houchen was finding it more and more difficult to deal with them. Although Wang Yuan and Sima Xian wanted to rush out with their strength, if they really rushed out, even if they could injure the demon eye warlocks, they probably wouldn't be able to come back alive. Therefore, Long Houchen gave a strict order that no one could leave the formation. Only by maintaining the shuttle-shaped formation could they withstand the heavy pressure of the demons. What should they do? Were they going to give up on their previous efforts? At this moment, the pressure suddenly decreased. In the sky, 5 figures suddenly descended like lightning. Their target was the location of the 3 demon eye warlocks. At the same time, a burly man rushed out from Long Houchen's side. A pair of battle axes in his hands drove his tyrannical body to instantly engulf the demons in front of Long Houchen. A large number of demons, including the golden 2-headed demon eye, were sent flying. Of course, those who weren't strong enough were directly cut in half. This was the warrior's powerful area of effect skill, Whirlwind Slash. Seeing this person, Long Houchen couldn't help but be surprised because he actually knew this axe warrior. Wasn't this the 5th brother who had lost 100,000 merit points to him? On the battlefield, the 5th brother's performance was particularly valiant. His pair of giant axes were like a road roller, crazily beheading the demons in front of him. Moreover, he had obviously used the berserk skill. Even if the attacks of the demons could land on him, they were all scattered. The pressure from the front was suddenly greatly reduced. Long Houchen could also breathe a sigh of relief. He looked in the direction of the 3 demon eye warlocks. The 5 figures descending from the sky were 5 people. Behind each of them was a pair of dazzling energy wings flapping. Spiritual energy wings, powerhouses of the 6th order. The 5 people descended from the sky. The person in the lead was riding on the back of a tall, 6-legged horse. This warhorse also had a pair of wings on its back, but it wasn't a unicorn. The 6-legged flying horse was a very rare mount in the human world. Whether in the air or on the ground, it had very strong combat ability. Unfortunately, it wasn't a light attribute magical beast, but a fire attribute magical beast. Otherwise, its role could even be compared to that of the brilliant unicorn. Sitting on the horse was a knight dressed in a full set of glorious great equipment. He had a tower shield in his left hand and a heavy sword in his right. The moment the six-legged flying horse descended from the sky, it collided with a demon eye warlock. A dazzling golden light suddenly spread with his body as the center, like a golden wall that was spreading to the surroundings. Within a diameter of 30 meters, except for the three demon eye warlocks, all the other demons were overturned, allowing his four companions to land calmly. Next, it was time for the 5 people to perform. In the midst of the flashes of light, in just a few blinks of an eye, the 3 demon eye warlocks that were close to them had turned into corpses. Their strong appearance gave a great buffer on Long Houchen's side. The knight in the lead of the 8th General Grade Monster Hunters was Zhang Fongfong, who had come to Long Houchen to admit his mistake before setting off. After killing the 3 demon eye warlocks, Zhang Fongfong turned around and gave a thumbs up to Long Houchen. Long Houchen tapped the heavy sword in his right hand on his shoulder and returned the knight's salute. This was a battlefield, and he had no time to say anything to Zhang Fongfong. But when their eyes met, there was a sense of mutual appreciation. The appearance of the 8th General Grade Monster Hunters could be said to be just at the right time. Not only did it ease the pressure on Long Houchen's side, but it also broke through the demon's camp, forming a 2-sword combination with Long Houchen's side. This caused the pressure on the human army in the rear to plummet. The commander of the Temple League was not a fool. Naturally, he would not let go of this opportunity. He directed the human warriors to launch a counterattack and quickly pressed forward 30 meters. Long Houchen's opponents changed from 5 to 2, and he suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. His main defense was concentrated on the twin-headed demon vulture in the air, but he suddenly threw out a glaring golden light. The moment the golden light exploded, a blue light appeared. The blue rain and hibiscus of light in Long Houchen's hands quietly disappeared. This was the strongest attack of his heavy sword, the radiant rain hibiscus stab. The target was naturally that extremely crafty golden dual-bladed demon. This attack of Long Houchen's had been accumulating power for a long time. Before he launched it, his Saint Spiritual Stove's draw skill suddenly erupted. The increase in strength caused the power of his spiritual stove to also increase. This forceful pull caused the fleeing golden dual-bladed demon to pause for a moment. In the next instant, the 2-colored light of gold and blue blossomed within the body of this crafty enemy. A terrifying attack burst forth like a tide. Boom! The golden dual-bladed demon's body was directly blown to pieces. However, Long Houchen did not have it easy either. The consumption of using the radiant rain hibiscus stab was even greater than using Azure Chop. It consumed no less than 1,500 points of internal spiritual energy, and this was still because he was the Scion of Light, which would reduce the consumption when using skills. The twin-headed demon vulture in the air had always been looking for a flaw in Long Houchen's defense. How could it let go of such a good opportunity? After breaking through the joint defense laid down by Hao Yue and Lin Xian, its main body fiercely collided with Long Houchen's glorious sacred shield. Magic erupted at close range. A fusion of fire and darkness magic, Dark Core Explosion, was suddenly released. The sacred shield and sacred spirit protection on Long Houchen's body were completely shattered, and he himself was directly sent flying. Fortunately, he had the life-sharing of the soul chain. 7 golden lights shone at the same time. From the start of the battle until now, this was also the first time Long Houchen and the others faced danger. After the twin-headed demon vulture sent Long Houchen flying, its huge body also fell into the core position of Long Houchen's team. Facing such a dangerous situation, the 21 general-level monster hunters and the others did not panic at all. Before Long Houchen launched his attack to kill the golden dual-bladed demon, he had already made a hand gesture. Therefore, his companions were already prepared. A black figure suddenly enlarged and brazenly appeared in front of the twin-headed demon vulture. The appearance of this huge figure caused the twin-headed demon vulture, which was about to wreak havoc, to freeze its body. It actually did not launch its attack. Not only it, but the surrounding demons that were charging towards Long Houchen's team also had a similar reaction. The reason was simple. A huge black dragon had suddenly appeared in front of the twin-headed demon vulture. This black dragon's body was no less than 10 meters long, and the members of the two demon hunt squads were all under him. His huge wings were spread out on both sides of his body, and his huge body was the strongest deterrent, to the point that everyone's gaze instantly became sluggish. It was also at this moment that a huge metal ball fiercely bombarded the twin-headed demon vulture's body from the side. A terrifying explosion sounded together with the twin-headed demon vulture's miserable shriek. All of this could be said to be premeditated. Why would he land on the ground if he did not give the twin-headed demon vulture a chance to take advantage of him? The hand gesture that Long Houchen made before activating the light rain hibiscus thorn was their team's own coordination. Although Long Houchen was blasted away, the others were already ready to move. Hanyu had now taken over Long Houchen's position, shielding Lin, Xian, and Cheninger behind him. At the same time, Han Haoyue's body also shone with a dazzling brilliance, using his own defensive magic to protect the two magicians on his back. That huge black dragon was undoubtedly the appearance of the Demon Emperor's personal guard. Of course, it was a fake. Madul Piglet had been watching the show for so long. Naturally, this was a good opportunity for it to display its strength at this critical moment. It was a pure mirror image that had no attack power. However, the sudden appearance of the black dragon and the terrifying suppression of its position was enough to shock all the demons present. While the twin-headed demon vulture was still in a daze, Sima Xian's vigorous ball of light hit it hard. Sima Xian was also waiting for this moment. When Long Houchen made the hand gesture, he waved the vigorous ball of light above his head. The power of this attack could be said to be the full power of this attack. The vigorous ball of light not only had light ripple attached to it, but also his cleric's skill, Holy Light Hammer. Coupled with the terrifying weight of this equipment, it directly smashed the twin-headed demon vulture's tendons and bones. The twin-headed demon vulture's physical attack was not weak, and its magic attack was even more powerful. However, this meant that its defense was not very good. Under such circumstances, it was faced with an insane weapon like the vigorous ball of light. Not only was it blasted away, but it also fell into a temporary state of dizziness due to the combined effects of Crush, Light Ripple, and Holy Light Hammer. Along with an ear-piercing screech, a heavy shield descended from the sky. With Sima Xian's attack, how could Wang Yuanyuan's be absent? The divine Titan shield descended from the sky, the sharp tip of the shield fiercely striking the twin-headed demon vulture's left wing. Wang Yuanyuan's choice of location for this attack was very ingenious. Although the twin-headed demon vulture's defense was not as high as the Tier 7 demons fighting on the ground, it was still a Tier 7 demon. If she had attacked from another location, at most, she would only be able to injure the twin-headed demon vulture. However, the root of the twin-headed demon vulture's wing was a different story. Moreover, the root of the twin-headed demon vulture was the most vital point of a flying demonic beast. Amidst the twin-headed demon vulture's miserable shriek, more than half of its wing was severed. At this moment, Long Houchen had also returned. Although he had been sent flying, due to his powerful defense and the two Tier 6 spells, apart from a numb arm, he did not receive any real damage. At this moment, Shifeng returned. At the same time, the brilliant sacred shield in his hand was once again withdrawn. The light elemental fairy Yuting's body suddenly erupted with a dazzling golden halo, spreading behind Long Houchen. This was the amplification effect of brilliant heaven and earth. It temporarily forcefully transmitted the condensed light elemental fairy to Long Houchen. Although doing so would put a lot of burden on Long Houchen, at the same time, it would also allow him to temporarily recover a large amount of spiritual energy to launch this attack. The twin-headed demon vulture was seriously injured. Its eyes flickered, and a huge light barrier fused with darkness, and fire elemental fairies burst out from its body. Unfortunately, at this moment, it was already unable to stop Long Houchen. Azura Slash. The rippling light caused the already terrifying might of Azura Slash to become even more tyrannical. Under the sharp blue rain and hibiscus of light, the fire and darkness were shattered. The dazzling heavy sword ruthlessly slashed into the twin-headed demon vulture's body, cutting it in half without the slightest delay. When the twin-headed demon vulture fell to the ground and lost its ability to fly, its fate was already sealed. Luxi and the other 5 stare with their eyes wide open. When Long Houchin and the other 6 erupted in an instant, the 6 of them from the general grade monster hunters became marginal characters. They didn't even understand what happened, and a rank 7 twin-headed demon vulture was killed. In terms of strength, the twin-headed demon vulture was only at the beginning of rank 7, and was even weaker than the demon lord. The demon lord at least had a sword, while the twin-headed demon vulture only had its magic. As a result, after rashly charging into the trap laid by the general grade number 21 monster hunters, it also met its tragic end. Of course, the most important reason for its death was Madol Piglet's threat. At least half of the credit was due to that. The Black Dragon's threat had not ended. Of course, it couldn't attack, but it could still raise its head to the sky and let out a dragon roar. Seeing the huge black dragon pouncing towards the demons, the racial pressure finally caused the demons to panic. Of course, they couldn't figure out why the Imperial Guards of His Majesty the Demon Emperor would attack them. For a moment, the low and mid-level demons lost their desire to fight. Morale was extremely important in a war. Once morale was affected, it was likely to bring about a crushing defeat. Seeing that the demon army was declining in this direction, the general of the Southern Pass immediately commanded the Southern Pass garrison to launch a counterattack. These garrison troops were all injured and tired, but they were also seasoned veterans. To be able to survive until now, it could be said that they were the most elite troops of the Southern Pass. They understood that whether or not they could truly survive depended on this battle. No matter how tired they were, they gritted their teeth and charged towards the enemy. It didn't matter if the garrison troops were injured and tired, there were new reinforcements. They were all fresh troops. Under the leadership of dozens of monster hunters and 5,000 fresh troops, the Temple League army brazenly launched a counterattack against the demons in the streets and alleys. Since the Southern Pass was suddenly in a state of emergency, since the Temple League had sent out reinforcements, they must have some confidence. Among the 6 temples, besides the powerful Temple Knight Corps sent by the Knights Templars, the other 5 temples also sent out elites of grade 5 and above. Although their combat power couldn't be compared to the monster hunters, the combat power they could display on the battlefield was still quite terrifying. Even if they were all grade 5, the human side could at least fight 3 or 4 demons. They had equipment. Even if it was ordinary armor, it could give them more protection than the demons. Moreover, do not forget that they were an army. An army had discipline, and they also had mutual cooperation and support. Although the demon army was strong, they had too many races. They never relied on cooperation and relied on pure numbers to crush their opponents. As a result, the entire Southern Guard Pass was put on a good show of a desperate counterattack. However, Long Houchin led the 2 monster hunters forward and slowed down a bit. He didn't immediately join the battle. Lu Shi's group healing ability was fully released. His internal spiritual power increased by more than 1,000 with the help of the Holy Spirit Pill, greatly increasing his healing ability. Everyone's body was shining with a golden light. Bathed in the warm, healing magic of the priests, it was definitely a kind of blissful enjoyment on the battlefield. However, no one knew that the reason why Long Houchin slowed down was not because of the previous battle and the injuries on his body. Although the grade 7 two-headed demon vulture's attack was fierce, the effect of the soul chain was too powerful. The attack was first blocked by all of Long Houchin's defensive abilities, including Divine Defense Block. After blocking the attack, it was divided equally among the 7 people. Although he suffered a little shock, his injuries were very light and could be ignored with Lu Shi's group healing. As for his spiritual power consumption, he had Eternal Melody and Light Elemental Fairy Yuting to double his recovery. When necessary, Hao Yue could even use Brilliant World to help him replenish his spiritual power. In terms of endurance, no one at their level could compare to Long Houchin. The real reason he slowed down was because of the pain. He was currently suffering from severe pain and had no choice but to slow down so that he could focus on dispelling the pain. The source of the pain was eternal melody. As soon as he stepped onto the battlefield, eternal melody in Long Houchin's chest began to burn. It was like a greedy magical beast, devouring the spiritual energy in the air that others couldn't see. Long Houchin's spiritual perception far exceeded that of ordinary people. Moreover, thousands of spiritual energy were rushing toward him. It was not a good feeling. Moreover, along with the influx of spiritual energy, eternal melody unceasingly erupted with a blazing aura. The burning pain was constantly affecting him. If it wasn't for Long Houchin's astonishing willpower, he wouldn't have been able to endure until now. He could feel that the spiritual energy would quickly disappear after entering eternal melody, but the eternal melody's burning sensation would also increase a bit. However, he could also feel that eternal melody wasn't omnipotent. Its ability to attract spiritual energy was only about 200 meters in diameter. Beyond this distance, it couldn't be absorbed. Therefore, he slowed down his pace in order to let eternal melody absorb a bit slower, so that he could quickly digest and absorb the spiritual energy it had just absorbed. Otherwise, the burning sensation was already making him feel like his chest was about to burn through. How could he continue fighting? However, this burning sensation wasn't completely without its benefits. In that burning sensation, Long Houchin clearly felt the liquid spiritual energy in his body suddenly increase in speed as it revolved around the saint's spiritual stove. Moreover, it was unceasingly compressed. Although the eternal melody's burning sensation made him feel like his chest was about to be burned through, he could also feel that he seemed to have grasped a trace of inspiration at the same time. Unfortunately, under these circumstances, he couldn't immediately sit down and cultivate. Otherwise, with his perception, since he had grasped the inspiration, he would certainly have reaped some harvest. The burning sensation of eternal melody gradually cooled down due to Long Houchin's slowing pace. He also let out a slight sigh of relief. He wasn't willing to let eternal melody absorb the spiritual energy. This was obviously beneficial to the Tower of Eternity. However, he had always lacked a good impression of the things left behind by the necromancer. The others also took the opportunity before them to quickly recover their spiritual energy under the spirit-gathering halo that Long Houchin released. Although their speed on the battlefield was a bit slower, their previous performance was enough to win everyone's applause. It was precisely because of the breakthrough they had made that a slight change in one part affected the whole body, leading to this counterattack. "How's everyone?" Long Houchin turned his head to look at Lu Shi. Although he was asking everyone, he was mainly asking the members of the 22nd General Grade Demon Hunt Squad. The 7 of them had soul chains, so if there was a problem, everyone would suffer together. Lu Shi said, "No problem, we can still fight." Long Houchin nodded and said, "Let's go." The burning sensation in his chest had already subsided, but there would only be more corpses in front of him. He had no other choice but to bear it alone. He couldn't be afraid to fight at this time, right? The counterattack greatly boosted the morale of the Temple League warriors. Under the leadership of the fresh troops, they actually suppressed the demons that had invaded the Southern Guard Pass. Moreover, they slowly pushed forward and recovered their lost territory. Long Houchin and the others reappeared on the battlefield and immediately became one of the sharp knives that broke through the enemy's formation. Long Houchin charged at the forefront, Hao Yue and Yi Jun covered with magic, and by Xiaoma's plant magic produced a ring of thorns around the team, strengthening the overall defense. For a moment, they really had the momentum of breaking through like a hot knife through butter. The 13 people's cooperation became more and more tacit. Even the grade 6 demons couldn't stop them for a moment. As for the grade 7 ones, they were in the minority. They had already killed 2 of them, so they couldn't be unlucky enough to encounter them every time. Long Houchin became the busiest person. Not only did he have to command, kill, and defend, but he also had to collect the corpses of the demons with the help of eternal melody. Of course, now Long Houchen was also picky. He let go of those below grade 5 and collected all those above grade 5. Not to mention the value of the corpses, the magic crystals of the demons alone were not a small amount. At this time, the team's discipline was reflected. Except for Long Houchen, whether it was the general level number 21 or no. 22, the others only cared about killing, defending, and assisting. No one collected the corpses of the demons. Even if Long Houchen missed them, they would not do anything. If an outstanding team's cooperation was affected by benefits, then how could they be worthy of the word outstanding? Long Houchen only said that he would collect the spoils of war and distribute them after the battle. The others carried out his order well. From the beginning until now, Long Houchen's fairness, justice, and selflessness in the team had been seen by everyone. He was also shouldering the most difficult task. In the entire team, no matter how rebellious the elites of the temple were, they were now completely convinced by him. A strong team core not only had to be strong in combat, but also had to complete the most important task. At the same time, he had to ensure that his team had a strong cohesiveness. He had to play the role of everyone in the team. The burning sensation reappeared in Long Houchen's chest along with the massacre. However, to Long Houchen's surprise, his resistance to the burning sensation caused by eternal melody had increased significantly. The reason was unknown, but it was a good thing. More importantly, the inspiration from before seemed to have appeared again. The internal spiritual power in his body gathered even more frantically. Under the effect of the burning sensation, even though he was constantly using skills, the internal spiritual power in his body did not decrease. It seemed that eternal melody had brought about some special ability. Could it be that eternal melody could also recover my spiritual power by absorbing soul energy? This was the only thought in his mind. Long Houchen could not be bothered with the condition of his body anymore. A ray of black light descended from the sky. With a rumble, it directly smashed into the counterattack army of the Temple League. Amidst the violent rumble, purplish-black bubbles burst outwards. At least dozens of warriors of the Sixth Great Temple, who could not dodge in time, melted in the purplish-black bubbles. Chapter 96. A handsome man appeared at the center of the explosion. That's right, he looked exactly the same as a human. The only difference was that he had a pair of purple eyes. His black attire was unusually luxurious, with many dark purple patterns on it. His collar was pulled up to cover his neck. His skin was very fair, and he looked very handsome. A pair of slender white palms spread out on both sides of his body. Balls of purplish-black light shot out from his slender fingers and exploded into the crowd from the Sixth Great Temple. Balls of dark purplish-black light burst out. Long Houchen and the others were very close to this handsome man, so they naturally became the targets of the purplish-black light balls. Horizontal shield, holy shield technique. Long Houchen was duty-bound to block the explosion of the purplish-black light balls. However, this black-clothed young man was too strong. It was just a small purplish-black ball of light, but it had almost sent Long Houchen flying. Not only was the holy shield technique broken, but even its light had dimmed a little. What kind of strength was this? Everyone turned pale with fright and hurriedly got into formation. A large number of defensive spells landed on Long Houchen's body. Others might not recognize the race of this black-clothed man who looked no different from a human. But how could Long Houchen not recognize him? Both his appearance and attire showed that he was a true Moon Devil's expert. 8th grade. This was also the first time Long Houchen and the others faced an 8th grade enemy on the battlefield. Long Houchen's heart sank when he saw him. An 8th grade expert, like the Moon Devils, should be fighting in the air. The fact that this black-clothed young man could take part in the battle on the ground meant that the demons still had strength to spare in the air. This was definitely not a good thing for the Temple League and the Southern Guard Pass. Young Moon Devil's eyes were filled with disdain. He simply stood in place, but the purplish-black light balls in his hands kept reaping human lives. Many attacks from the human magicians landed on him, but they were all blocked by a layer of purple light he released. They could not cause any damage at all. In just a short period of time, He had already killed nearly 100 humans. Long Houchin suddenly turned around and looked at his companions. Everyone could see the determination in his eyes. "Hanyu, what are the 10 rules of a knight?" Long Houchin suddenly asked loudly. Hanyu answered without hesitation. "Modest, honest, compassionate, brave, fair, sacrifice, honorable, persistent, benevolent, and just." Long Houchin gritted his teeth. "Follow me." As he spoke, he stuffed 2 pills into his mouth and strode towards the Class 8 Moon Demon with an indomitable aura. When Long Houchin took the first step, the 12 people behind him, including Kai Air on his back, all felt the determination in Long Houchin's heart. They all had the same feeling in their hearts. Long Houchin was a true knight. At this time, Long Houchin did not care about honor or disgrace, nor did he care about benefits. What he wanted to do was to resist the Moon Demon's attack as much as possible, so that more warriors and magicians of the Temple League could survive. That was all. He was no longer facing difficulties, but facing death with equanimity. With every step he took, Long Houchin's aura grew a bit stronger. The effects of the bloodthirst pill and the spiritual explosion pill quickly took effect. Dense golden light constantly burst out from his body. In the next moment, the scorching heat in Long Houchin's chest seemed to rise to the peak. Immediately after, the scorching heat spread throughout his entire body. The saint's spiritual stove in his chest seemed to have disappeared, as did the eternal melody. There seemed to be a black hole there, crazily absorbing the light elements in the air. Divine energy surged out from Long Houchin's body like a volcanic eruption, and the blazing fire of the sun rose in a flash. A pair of golden wings unfurled from his back without any warning. Spiritual power wings. Yes, it was the spiritual power wings that represented the rank 6 Radiance Knight. Who would have thought that Long Houchin would break through at this moment? His breakthrough was not with the help of the bloodthirst pill and the spiritual explosion pill, but with the combined eruption of the obsession in his heart, the eternal melody, and the saint's spiritual stove. He had been at the critical point for a few months, and the past few months of training could be said to be accumulating power in order to break through. At this moment, when the obsession in his heart reached its peak, he chose to face the great pressure brought by the rank 8 Moon Demon and face it head-on. The spiritual energy in his body burst forth from this obsession and finally broke through the rank 6 bottleneck. Before this battle, which was likely to be a suicidal one, his cultivation rose to rank 6 radiance. The potential of the Son of Light was not only in perception, but also in willpower and his heart full of light. Long Houchin's spiritual wings were about 1.5 meters long and stretched out on his back. Because they were in the form of energy, they did not affect Kai Er. Everyone was at rank 6, but everyone's spiritual wings were different. Long Houchin's spiritual wings were very peculiar. On the bright golden wings, there seemed to be countless small suns shining, and each feather formed from spiritual power was exceptionally clear. The moment his wings spread out, the light elements in the air seemed to find a source and frantically converge towards him. The dazzling wings illuminated at least 100 meters in diameter. It was impossible not to be noticed. All the allies within this range felt their spiritual power recovering and their injuries lightening. Long Houchin's eyes shone brilliantly, and his black hair unexpectedly turned golden at noon. His whole body emitted a unique temperament. It seemed that as long as he was around, all the darkness would be dispelled. The Moon Devil immediately sensed Long Houchin's appearance and subconsciously turned around. When he saw the golden wings on Long Houchin's back, his eyes immediately revealed an intense look of disgust. He snorted and blasted a fist in the air toward Long Houchin. A purplish-black light wave with a diameter of over a foot blasted in front of Long Houchin in an instant. Long Houchin did not dodge. With the enhancement of the Spirit Explosion Elixir and the Bloodthirst Elixir, he had also advanced to the Radiance Night Realm. At this moment, he felt as if he had endless spiritual power. The brilliant sacred shield in his hand suddenly disappeared, and he faced Yusha's fist with both hands while holding his sword and slashed down with Azura Slash. It was an attack against an attack. A golden ray of light instantly appeared in the air. The golden sword light extended over 3 meters. The ear-piercing friction sound was just like the shrill howl in the mournful howl cave, shaking the entire place. That purplish-black light wave was actually cut into 2 halves by the Azura Slash and landed on both sides of the ground behind Long Hao-Chen with an intense explosion. Each of them burned out a deep pit with a diameter of over 5 meters. The Moon Devil looked at Long Hao-Chen with some surprise. Although the radiance on Long Hao-Chen's wings was very intense, with his rank 8 cultivation, he could clearly feel that this was only a rank 6 human knight. He was only at the 6th step, so how could he possibly receive his attack? The brilliant sacred shield reappeared in Long Hao-Chen's left hand, and at the same time, a silver-white radiance gushed out from his chest. The Moon Devil wanted to dodge, but he discovered that it was impossible for him to do so. That silver-white radiance had already firmly landed on his body like a bridge, connecting the 2 of them together. The Saint Spiritual Stove, and an evolved Saint Spiritual Stove at that. The moment Long Hao-Chen's cultivation broke through to rank 6, his Saint Spiritual Stove also completed its 2nd evolution. The surrounding Temple League powerhouses who had just been suppressed couldn't help but burst into cheers filled with excitement. The arrival of the rank 8 Moon Devil brought them great difficulty. And at this time, a human knight released his spiritual wings and appeared on the battlefield, blocking the Moon Devil's attack and releasing the Saint's Spiritual Stove. This meant that the Moon Devil was temporarily unable to launch an attack on them. The humans' counterattack against the Xia clan continued, the momentum not decreasing but increasing as they frantically rushed towards the demons. The Moon Devil's purple eyes were filled with a cold light. His figure flashed, and a purple lightning seemed to appear in the sky. In the next instant, he had already arrived in front of Long Hao-Chen. Still empty-handed, his right fist directly blasted towards Long Hao-Chen. A series of rumbling sounds erupted under his fist. In this short period of time, there were actually 8 layers of defensive magic in front of Long Hao-Chen, and each layer was rank 5. This was released by Hao Yue, An Yu, Lin Xan, Lu Shi, and King Yi. The rank 8 Moon Devil strength was indeed tyrannical, but breaking through 8 layers of defense also weakened his attack. Bao Step Divine Defense Block. Long Hao-Chen suddenly took a step forward, the spiritual wings on his back bursting with even more resplendent light. The fire of the sun condensed on the brilliant sacred shield, and in addition to the sacred shield's own sacred shield technique, was activated once again. Amidst the loud bang, Long Hao-Chen was still blasted back 8 steps by this punch before he could barely stand firm. At the same time, a golden light shone on the bodies of the number 21 general rank monster hunters. Rank 8 was rank 8. The difference in levels was so huge. Even though Long Hao-Chen's cultivation had been raised to rank 6, and he had taken 2 types of elixirs that could instantly stimulate his potential, he was still forced back. If not for the effect of the soul chain, he would have been heavily injured by this attack. This was definitely not possible. He could not block his attack. As Long Hao-Chen's body was forced back, blue rain and hibiscus of light quickly drew a light pattern in the air, and at the same time, Demon Destruction Flash burst out, transforming into thousands of light rays that slightly slowed down the Moon Devil's speed. Seeing the light pattern, Wang Yuanyuan, Sima Xian, Han Yu, Chun Ing and Lin Xen all swallowed an elixir at the same time. Kair, who was behind Long Hao-Chen, also did the same action at the same time his back muscles contracted. As for Long Hao-Chen himself, he threw 2 elixirs into his mouth. Strength Elixir, Spirit Enhancing Elixir. Boom! Blazing golden flames suddenly burst out from Long Hao-Chen's body. The surging and rich light elements made the Moon Devil stagnate. He was shocked to discover that although the human knight in front of him was much weaker than him, the light elemental energy he emitted was actually more concentrated than the dark elemental energy he cultivated. How is this possible? He was the noblest of the lunar demons. Long Houchen was not the only one who produced the flames. His 6 companions also ignited with different colored flames at the same time. The flames on Kai, Er's body were gray, Lin Xian's were red, Sima Xian and Han Yu's were gold, Wang Yuan's were silver, and Chening Er's was translucent white. The 6 flames seemed to have found a wind vein, instantly connecting together and pouring into Long Houchen's body. At the same time, a purple figure suddenly crashed into Long Houchen's body from the side. A loud dragon's roar suddenly burst out from Long Houchen's body. The sudden burst of aura forced the 8th level Moon Devil to take a step back. He looked at Long Houchen in shock and bewilderment. What's going on? Why do I feel threatened from him? And it's a very strong threat at that. The spirit-enhancing elixir could concentrate all the user's spiritual power on one person, and its main ingredient was the Great Demon Crystal Core. Moreover, each spirit-enhancing elixir needed to consume a complete Great Demon Crystal Core and many other precious ingredients to be successfully produced. This was Lin Xian's latest research. The 21st General Level Monster Hunters only had 2 sets, and this was the first time it was used on the battlefield. Against the 8th level Moon Devil, there was no chance for Long Houchen to keep it to himself. If he didn't use it now, he might not even have a chance to use it. Currently, Long Houchen not only received the enhancement of the spirit-enhancing elixir, but also the fusion of Hao Yue. When the spirit-enhancing elixir brought the 6 people's spiritual power into his body, Long Houchen felt that the spiritual aperture that he had just formed was almost broken by the terrifying spiritual power. Even with the enhancement of the external spiritual power of the Great Strength Elixir, his body was almost unable to bear it. He had taken a total of 4 elixirs and had just broken through to 6th level, so everything was not stable. Under the impact of the spiritual power in his body, he almost collapsed. After all, the spirit-enhancing elixir was only theoretical, and because it was precious, it had never been used in battle. At this critical moment, a warm energy flowed into Long Houchen's body. Long Houchen felt his whole body warm up, and this warm energy instantly gathered the scattered spiritual power in his body and fused with it. The spiritual power was still strong, but it was no longer violent and was much gentler. It could be controlled by him now. Without a doubt, this warm energy came from Hao Yue. It was his fusion that allowed Long Houchen to truly control this terrifying external spiritual power. The 21st General Level Monster Hunters' spiritual power had all broken through 3,000, and with Long Houchen's, his spiritual power had broken through 4,000. His total spiritual power was over 22,000. This was a spiritual power that had broken through to 8th level and above. It was a pity that Long Houchen's cultivation was only at the 6th order after all. It was obvious that he could not reach the 8th order. But even so, after fusing with Hao Yue, he still reached the peak of the 7th order. His spiritual energy increased once again, nearing the level of 30,000. At this moment, the wings on Long Houchen's back had doubled in size, and each wing was 3 meters long. Furthermore, they had become wider, and each feather was vivid and lifelike. There were even more layers and fine golden lines on them. Instead, the light was somewhat restrained, but the pair of wings, just like his body, became completely transparent. This was the 7th level Temple Knight's body of light, and at its peak, the body of light spread all over his body. On his forehead, there were 9 dazzling purple light lines, and even the feathers on his spiritual wings were faintly purple. This was obviously the effect of Hao Yue's fusion. Han Yu sword, Long Houchen shouted, and at the same time, he took a step forward. It was as if a golden lightning had appeared in the air, and his dazzling golden figure had already appeared in front of the Moon Demon. Behind him, a golden light shone, and at this moment, it landed in Long Houchen's hand. It was the Ring of Light. It could be said that the current Long Houchen had used all the team's trump cards. The Body Spirit Enhancement pill only lasted for 30 seconds, and with his current spiritual power, it was no problem to resist the Moon Demon's attacks for 30 seconds. But what about after 30 seconds? Therefore, he was no longer suitable to be a guardian knight, and should be the incarnation of punishment. With a double scrape in his hands, the demon destruction flash suddenly erupted, and with a glorious aura, Long Houchen was filled with decisive spiritual power and murderous intent. The light elemental fairy, Yu Ting, floated behind him, and her chanting had already become high-pitched. She no longer released any support skills, and instead focused all her chanting attack spells on Long Houchen. The blue rain and the hibiscus of light transformed into thousands of rays of light and water, while the light punishment instantly turned into a sparkling and translucent red. It was the highly concentrated fire of the sun. Different heavy swords released the same demon destruction flash, and the ear-piercing whistling sounded like they were in a cave of fear and sorrow. Faced with Long Houchen's strong counterattack, the 8th-level moon demon did not dare to be careless. His hands transformed into circles of mysterious purplish-black light lines in front of him, and condensed into a purplish-black barrier to block the demon destruction flash's attack. However, with the enhancement of the body of light, the attack power of Long Houchen's demon destruction flash increased to a terrifying level. Amidst the whistling sounds, under the moon demon's shocked gaze, small holes actually appeared in his defense. The sharp aura even stimulated his body, causing a series of stabbing pain. "You're courting death," the moon demon shouted angrily. With a shake of his body also turned to translucent purplish-black. He was using the dark demon body, which had the same effect as the body of light, but he was much more relaxed when using it than Long Houchen. He put his palms together in front of him, and a purplish-black crescent moon appeared behind him. The demonic barrier in front of him suddenly shone brightly, and Long Houchen's demon destruction flash was shattered into pieces. However, at this moment, a red glow instantly landed on his body. It dyed the 8th-level moon demon with a layer of red. Punishment Knight's skill, Lock On. Immediately after, Long Houchen's body was like a violent gale, and he spun around rapidly. At the same time, his body also lit up with a piercing red light, and the blue rain and hibiscus of light in his right hand burst forth at lightning speed. When this dual attribute sword of light and water, which had the ability to grow, was released, there were even 2 loud and clear dragon roars in the air. The moon demon saw 2 dragon heads biting towards him. 30 seconds was too short, and Long Houchen chose to go crazy. Attack crazily. This was the only way to unleash the full effect of the conjoined spirit increasing pill. Lock On, Sacrifice, All or Nothing, Rain of Light, Hibiscus Stab. The 4 skills were executed in one go, like moving clouds and flowing water. Although Long Houchen's cultivation was already at the peak of the 7th level, his various abilities were still at the peak of the 5th level. Regardless of whether it was the 6th level or 7th level skills, he had not learned or cultivated them, so naturally, he could not use them. Thus, he could only use his own methods to attack. He used skills that were not restricted by rank, and the stronger one's strength, the more powerful they would be. The purplish-black demonic barrier seemed so weak in front of the rain of light hibiscus stab, which was the combination of the 4 skills. Just this attack actually cost Long Houchen tens of thousands of spiritual energy points. This was because he originally only had 4,000 spiritual energy points, and using all or nothing and sacrifice did not draw in enough spiritual energy points. 10,000 spiritual energy points coupled with a terrifying attack like the rain of light hibiscus stab. The power was so strong that even Long Houchen could not imagine it. Blue rain and hibiscus of light transformed into 2 small dragons, breaking through the moon demon's line of defense with an unstoppable force and collided with his fists. The dragon's roar and miserable shriek sounded. The purplish-black moon behind the 8th-level moon demon shone brightly, and a thick moonlight flashed, actually forcibly cutting the 2 small dragons of the rain of light hibiscus stab in half. However, the moon demon's face turned pale because of this. Moreover, the 2 small dragons that were cut in half did not disappear, but directly entangled his body, and thick smoke accompanied the moon demon's miserable shriek as it rose up. The light element had a strong corrosive effect on the darkness, and there was also the water element's help. With enough spiritual energy, the rain of light hibiscus dab had transformed into the rain of light twin dragons. Not only did it have a strong attack power, but it also had an extremely strong restrictive ability. Even with the 8th level moon demon's strength, he was unable to break free for a moment and was confined in place. This all happened in the blink of an eye, and with such an opportunity, how could Long Haochen let it go? He held Light's punishment with both hands and raised it high above his head, but Long Haochen did not slash down immediately. A thick golden mist of light rose around his body like ripples of water. Accumulating power. Long Haochen's own spiritual energy, the spiritual energy from the conjoined spirit enhancement. Hao Yue's spiritual energy, the sticky light element brought by the eternal melody, and the spiritual energy gathered by the light elemental fairy Yoting, all fused into one at this moment, and rushed towards Light's punishment in Long Haochen's hand at a crazy speed. If it was the Holy Spirit sword from before, it was afraid that it would instantly collapse under this terrifying spiritual energy. However, the material of Light's punishment was unusually tough, and the only thing that changed was the light it emitted. At this moment, the golden light released by Long Haochen could even be seen by the Southern Pass, who were watching the chaotic battle from high up in the sky. One could imagine how terrifying the attack power he could erupt with was. The golden sword, under the crazy infusion of spiritual energy, actually produced distorted fluctuations. It was obviously not the sword itself that was distorting, but the spiritual energy. Light's punishment exuded a kind of sacred majesty, and under this rich aura of light, all the demons who could feel it felt timid. This deterrence was something that Long Haochen and the others did not know. They did not expect the glory-grade heavy sword to have such an effect after being injected with such a huge amount of spiritual energy. Long Haochen's hands holding Light's punishment were very stable, but his body was trembling slightly. He was sure that if it was not for the fact that Hao Yue's integration had greatly increased his body's endurance, he would not have been able to maintain such a stable state. However, no matter how much pain his body was enduring, his eyes were still resolute. His abnormally resolute eyes flickered with brilliance as he coldly stared at the 8th rank moon demon a few meters away. Ever since the powerful moon demon had appeared, he felt panic for the first time. He was able to resist more than half of the light rain twin dragon summit's attack power, and had only suffered light injuries. However, this powerful water and light combination skill had a powerful binding effect on him, and it was continuously corroding his body. Because he had just used a powerful skill that required time to buffer to defend against Long Haochen's 2 consecutive attacks, he was unexpectedly unable to break through the light rain twin dragon summit's restrictions. What made him even more panicked was the fact that the youth in front of him was accumulating power. Although the sword had not yet slashed down, the sharpness and fierceness of the sword cut into his body, causing him to feel a dull pain. Long Haochen was really going all out. He didn't hold back at all. After unleashing this final attack, he would lose all of his fighting strength. However, even so, he did not panic at all. Even if he died here, he would still unleash this all-out attack. Light's punishment, which carried the Holy Sword's skill, had become even more transparent. It was even more transparent than a crystal, reflecting countless rays of light. Long Haochen was waiting. He was waiting for the instant the moon demon broke free from the light rain twin dragon summon, or for the conjoined spirit-increasing pills to arrive. Even if he could only accumulate power for a little longer, he would still give it his all. The newly formed spiritual aperture had already lost its ability to absorb the light elements from the outside world, because his body was filled with too much spiritual power. However, Yuting was still dutifully fusing the light elements into Light's punishment. The panic in Yu Yu's heart grew stronger as the light on Light's punishment became more distorted. I can't wait any longer. This human can actually threaten my life. The moon demon's purple eyes suddenly lit up, becoming as resplendent as crystals. The purplish-black moonlight on his back, which had turned illusory due to the light rain twin dragon summon, once again flourished. The purple light on his body suddenly expanded, and a mouthful of purplish-black blood sprayed out from his mouth. The blood instantly transformed into a purplish-black rune in the air. The crescent moon on his back trembled violently. Immediately after, a beam of light suddenly erupted from the moon demon's chest, forcibly scattering the light rain twin dragon summon. Launching this struggle had clearly put a considerable burden on him. The purple light in his eyes dimmed the moment the light rain twin dragon summon was shattered. At this moment, Long Houchen moved. Light's punishment descended from the sky with an indescribable sound. In the blink of an eye, wherever the light passed, a golden gorge was left in the sky. The space was forcibly torn apart by this sword strike. An enormous suction force crazily sucked all the corpses on the ground into the pitch-black spatial crack. Sharpness, incomparably sharpness. Everyone in the surroundings could clearly feel the terrifying cutting sensation brought about by that sharpness. This feeling was truly terrifying, as if there was no power in this world that could resist his cutting. Of course, the moon demon wouldn't resign himself to death. The moment he released the purplish-black light that shattered the light rain twin dragon summon, his right hand had already reached behind his back. He actually grabbed the crescent moon on his back, then swept it up diagonally and made an upward slashing motion. If this was a normal battle, then even Long Houchen, who was at the same level as him, would be suppressed. The gap between the 7th and 8th grade was much greater than the gap between the 5th and 6th grade. Unfortunately, the difference in mentality determined the offensive and defensive stances of both sides. Long Houchen was unafraid of death and was putting his life on the line. The moment he walked towards the moon demon, I didn't think I would be able to return alive. The moon demon was a powerhouse of the 8th grade and one of the outstanding talents of the younger generation of the moon demons. He obviously didn't want to die, and he didn't place Long Houchen in his eyes at all. As a result, he was forced into such a state by Long Houchen's frenzied attacks without any regard for the consequences. Long Houchen only had these two skills in this attack, as the immense amount of spiritual energy was far beyond his control. He couldn't even use Ripple of Light. However, with these two skills stacked together, their might wasn't the slightest bit weaker than the light rain twin dragon summon under the effects of sacrifice and all or nothing. In terms of attack power, it might even be stronger. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that even a true 7th grade knight wouldn't have a deeper understanding of ready than Long Houchen. Long Houchen had specially relied on this skill to cultivate for a period of time and had even successfully broken through to the 5th grade. In a short period of time, this Azura Slash had gathered tens of thousands of spiritual energy points, and it was released in the highly concentrated form of Azura Slash, so its might could be imagined. Gee, there was no sound of collision, only a strange sound. The shattered space stopped at the purplish-black crescent moon. Long Houchen and the moon demon seemed to have frozen at this moment. However, the moon demon's face became abnormally pale, and purplish-black blood flowed out of his orifices at almost the same time, causing his originally handsome face to suddenly become ferocious. Ding! A crack appeared on the crescent moon formed completely from energy. Then, as if it was contagious, the crack instantly expanded, and finally, with a bang, it exploded in the air. The golden light then descended, ruthlessly cutting into the moon demon's shoulder. In this instant, Long Houchen and the moon demon strangely maintained a still state. One could clearly see the golden light on Long Houchen's body and the spiritual wings on his back recede like the tide. The effects of the conjoined, spirit-increasing pill had already been displayed to its limit, and in a situation where it hadn't even reached 30 seconds, its effects had already disappeared. Long Houchen's face was already as pale as paper, and the 6 companions behind him were the same. Their spiritual energy had already been exhausted. Moreover, after using sacrifice and all or nothing, his body was already severely overdrawn, and even Haoyue was ejected from his body. He also fell weakly to the side. The moon demon suddenly let out a miserable scream. Ever since he was born, He had never suffered such a great loss. The light retribution slashed deeply into his shoulder, all the way to the right side of his chest. His upper body was almost split in half, and large amounts of purplish-black blood were gushing out crazily. If it had been a human, they obviously wouldn't have survived such a heavy injury. The moon demon didn't retreat, and a layer of crisp red appeared in his purple eyes. It was an expression of extreme anger. His left hand was still able to condense purplish-black light, and he slammed it fiercely towards Long Houchen's chest. He hated this human youth to the core, and he could also see that Long Houchen was currently in a fragile state. However, at this moment, a rose-red light suddenly appeared, blocking in front of Long Houchen. With a loud bang, the red figure flew out, and along with her mount, fell to the side. It was Lin Xian. The previous battle had been carried out by the 21st General-level Monster Hunters, and everything had happened very quickly. At this moment, the 22nd General-level Monster Hunters naturally saw the change in Long Houchen's body. Lin Xian was the first to rush forward. "Don't eat the conjoined spirit-increasing pill," Long Houchen shouted in a hoarse voice, stopping the 22nd General-level Monster Hunters from moving. At the same time, he made a puzzling move. The muscles on his back suddenly exerted force, and he actually sent Kai, who was behind him, flying towards Wang Yuan. At the same time, everyone saw a flash of golden light on his body, and he quickly pulled out the light retribution. At the same time as that golden light flickered, the bodies of the other 6 members of the 21st General Grey Demon Hunt Squad also flickered with golden light. The only difference was that the golden light on the bodies of the other 6 remained, while the golden light on Long Houchen's body disappeared. Although his body was extremely weak, Long Houchen was still very clear-headed at this moment. The moon demon didn't try to escape after being seriously injured. He already hated himself to the core, and without a doubt, he would bear the brunt of the moon demon's attack. At such a close distance, how could Long Houchen dodge the moon demon's desperate attack in his current state? Therefore, he immediately sent Kai away and forcefully cut off the connection between the soul chains. Otherwise, with the attack power of the level 8 moon demon, the 7 of them might not have survived. This was all thanks to Lin Xian. Without Lin Xian to block the attack, Long Houchen wouldn't even have had the chance to cut off the connection between the soul chains. Moreover, the moon demon was seriously injured. Although that attack caused Lin Xian to spit out blood, it wasn't fatal. The light retribution was pulled out, and purplish-black blood spurted out. The moon demon's life force was unusually tenacious. A layer of purplish-black light surged out of the blood that spurted out and quickly protected the wound, not letting too much blood flow out. As for the moon demon, he continued to kick at Long Houchen. A huge figure blocked in front of Long Houchen, and with a muffled grunt, Hao Yue was kicked 3 meters away. A layer of purplish-black light erupted from his body, and one could clearly see that the scales on his body were being corroded violently by the purplish-black light. Hao Yue! Long Houchen's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. At this moment, he no longer thought that he would be able to survive. With the last of his strength, he suddenly threw himself onto Hao Yue's body, blocking the moon demon's follow-up attack. Bang! Chapter 97. The moon demon's fist slammed fiercely into Long Houchen's back. He didn't have any spiritual power to channel into the radiant sacred armor to activate the Holy Spirit protection. One could clearly see that the radiant sacred armor was dented and deformed under the moon demon's fist. Fortunately, it was a piece of radiant grade equipment and didn't shatter. However, could Long Houchen, who was so weak now, withstand the terror of this attack? The 12 members of the General Grade Team number 21 and number 22 Monster Hunters seemed to have stopped breathing. When Kai was sent flying by Long Houchen, she was at a loss. She had lost her 4 senses and could only rely on her senses to feel the world. However, her loss only lasted for a moment. Her heart suddenly tightened. She knew Long Houchen too well. Under what circumstances would Long Houchen give up on her? He would only make such a choice when he could no longer protect her. Then, Long Houchin cut off the soul chain, which made Kai realize that her guess was correct. Tears gushed out of her eyes almost instantly. She subconsciously wanted to throw herself at him. However, at this moment, a pair of strong arms hugged her tightly. It was Wang Yuanyuan. Although she knew that Kai couldn't hear, Wang Yuanyuan still cried out, choking with sobs, "Don't sacrifice yourself for nothing." They couldn't save Long Houchin in time. Long Houchin had sent Kai to her, which meant that he trusted her. How could she let Kai sacrifice herself for nothing? Then, just when everyone thought that Long Houchin was dead for sure, an incomparably dazzling golden light suddenly surged out from Long Houchin's chest. An unparalleled and terrifying aura suddenly flashed. The heavily injured moon demon was actually sent flying by this sudden and enormous golden light. Moreover, he was sent flying hundreds of meters away. Divine weapon. The moon demon roared madly in the sky. A pair of black wings abruptly popped out from his back, and he frantically fled without any hesitation. Everything had happened too quickly. From a moment Long Houchin's Shura/heavily injured the moon demon to the moment the golden light on his body pushed the moon demon back, only a few breaths of time had passed. As the moon demon was sent flying, the rest of the general level monster hunters number 22 rushed to Long Houchin's side. Long Houchin let out a muffled groan and fell onto Hao Yue. The moment before he fainted, he vaguely heard a majestic voice. "Who dares to hurt the disciple of the sleeping catastrophe?" The blazing heat in his chest increased by at least 10 times. All of the souls that died in the Southern Guard Pass began to gather towards the eternal melody at an astonishing speed. Previously, Long Houchin sensed that it could only absorb souls with a diameter of 200 meters, but that was because his body could only withstand that much. At this moment, the eternal melody was fully activated. Long Houchin's body was injured, and he had successfully broken through to the 6th order. The eternal melody began to operate on its own, continuously and gently absorbing the souls in the air. At the same time, the priority was to convert the soul energy into light attribute energy that Long Houchin could absorb, nourishing his empty body. Luke, she seemed to have gone mad as she desperately cast healing magic on Long Houchin. The others also rushed over as fast as they could, surrounding Long Houchin in the center. Kai had already broken free from Wang Yuanyuan's restraints. Relying on her perception of Long Houchin's aura, she was the first to reach his side. Kai's body stiffened slightly. She seemed to have sensed something and quickly grabbed Long Houchin's right hand. Only then did her deathly pale face ease a little. She was the only one who could sense the enormous soul energy converging towards Long Houchin. At the same time, she could also sense Long Houchin's life aura. As the soul energy condensed, Kai was surprised to find that the sword of samsara in her body was showing signs of moving. The two teams of monster hunters surrounded Long Houchin, and they were no longer attacked by the demons. Long Houchin had successfully restrained and severely injured the 8th Order Moon Demon, bringing about the most favorable situation for the counterattack. At this moment, the Southern Pass garrison launched a strong counterattack under the leadership of the reinforcements. The demons that had invaded the Southern Pass were being driven out bit by bit. In the sky, large patches of golden light rained down. The golden light rain seemed to have a mind of its own as it drilled into the bodies of all living beings. Not only humans, but also demons. However, when humans were nourished by the golden light rain, they felt unprecedentedly comfortable. Their fatigue disappeared, their wounds healed, and their strength recovered. To the demons, it was a true disaster. When the light rain landed on their bodies, it only brought about miserable screams and black smoke. This light rain covered almost half of the Southern Pass. Anyone with a little common sense could tell that this was a 9th-tier light attribute forbidden spell, Goddess of Light's Yearning. This forbidden spell could only be used by 9th-tier priests. Even if the knight had reached the 9th tier, he would not be able to cast such a terrifying mass healing spell. When a priest reached the 9th tier, he would be called a saint. The fact that a human saint was taking action in the sky showed that the situation in the sky had at least stabilized. An ear-piercing howl rang out in the air along with a golden rain of light, and 12 thick pillars of light of various colors shot into the distance under the cover of the other slightly weaker pillars of light. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, the demons finally retreated. However, even though they had retreated, none of the 12 leading demon gods had fallen. It was clear that the difference in strength between the two sides was extremely small. If not for the timely arrival of reinforcements, the southern pass would have been destroyed. Long Houchin had been unconscious all this time. The only thing he could vaguely feel was the burning sensation in his chest. However, the burning sensation no longer made him feel pain. Instead, it made him feel very comfortable. He could not wake up because he was too tired. However, his unconscious mind was very relaxed. At least, he had done what he wanted to do. At least, he had saved hundreds of Alliance warriors and mages. He had not let down his father's expectations of him. He had done what a knight was supposed to do. The 21st and 22nd general-level Monster Hunters teams surrounded Long Houchin. Surprisingly, none of them made a sound. Apart from Kai Er, who was by Long Houchin's side, and Lu Shi, who had continuously cast healing spells until she ran out of spiritual energy, the other 10 were united against the enemy. Their eyes flickered with determination. Without a doubt, if anyone tried to attack Long Houchin at this moment, they would have to step over their corpses. Long Houchin had used his actions to ignite the stubbornness in his companions' hearts. Everyone had already ignored death. In their hearts, they had developed the same stubbornness as Long Houchin. In the same situation, a team of monster hunters that had just become general level, with an average strength of 5th grade monster hunters, what should they do when they encountered an 8th grade moon demon? Even if the leaders of the Temple League asked the same question, they would still tell the monster hunters to leave as soon as possible and preserve their strength. However, did Long Houchin do that? No, he did not. In order to let more people survive, he did what he knew was impossible. It could be said that if not for the golden light that appeared at the end to protect him, he would have died on the battlefield. They did not hear the moon demon shout the words divine weapon, nor did they know what the golden light was. However, Long Houchin's miraculous survival filled their hearts with shame, especially the 6th general-level monster hunters number 22. When they saw the moon demon, the 6th general-level monster hunters number 22 hesitated. When they saw Long Houchin walk out resolutely, everyone except Lin Xin was filled with shock. However, they did not attempt to do anything. This was also why Lin Xin was able to block an attack for Long Houchin, while the others had arrived too late. How could they not feel ashamed? They also had a set of body-enhancing pills, but they did not eat them because of their pride and fear of the 8th grade moon demon. Although Long Houchin had yelled at them not to eat it, if they had eaten it before, would they have been able to help Long Houchin? The reason why Lu Shi was so desperate, even at the expense of his own body, was because he was venting the pain brought to him by the shame in his heart. He felt that he had let Long Houchin down. If Long Houchin died, as the leader of the general-level Monster Hunters number 22, he would never be able to forgive himself. The battle was still going on, but the 2 Demon Hunt squads were still maintaining this formation. No one said a word. Kai sat on the ground and placed Long Houchin's head on her thighs to make him more comfortable. She hugged his neck even more tightly. She didn't cry anymore, but her delicate body couldn't stop trembling. Her heart ached. Her heart ached so much. Her heart ached so much. At this moment, she even thought that if she had a choice, she would rather not be a member of the Monster Hunters team. It would be enough as long as she could be with Long Houchin. The multicolored lights in the sky gradually dimmed. The army of the demons that had invaded the city was finally driven out of the Southern Guard Pass. The experts of the Temple League descended from the sky, commanding the survivors to clean up the mess. Gradually, some people came to the side of the general-level Monster Hunters number 21 and number 22. The first to come back were the soldier-level Monster Hunters number 2 and number 3. Of course, to be precise, as Long Houchin and the others advanced to the general level, they should be soldier level number 1 and number 2. It was just that these two teams were also planning to advance to the general level as soon as possible, so they did not go to the Monster Hunter's mission tower to change their names. Yang Wenjiao, Duan Yi, and the members of the two Monster Hunters teams were all bathed in blood. The mages were relatively better off, but almost everyone in the melee professions was injured. However, at this time, their faces revealed a bit of solemnity. They quietly came to the side of general-level Monster Hunters number 21 and number 22 and quietly surrounded Long Haochen. Only Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi went to Lu Shi and asked her a few words in a low voice. After receiving the reply that Long Haochen's life was not in danger, their faces showed relief. After entering the battlefield, the four Monster Hunters teams were not far away from each other. They clearly saw the scene of Long Haochen resisting the Moon Demon. Yang Wenjiao always had the same arrogance as Han Yu, but he was much calmer than Han Yu back then. He also hid this arrogance very well. However, he now realized that his arrogance was so cheap. When he saw the rank 8 Moon Demon, he only thought about how to protect his team, but at that moment, Long Haochen had already taken big strides to meet it. Yang Wenjiao was already numb to Long Haochen's strength, but he knew very well that he did not lose to Long Haochen just because of his strength. After the two soldier-level Monster Hunters teams, the ones who returned were the general-level number 8 Monster Hunters team. Under the leadership of Zhang Fangfang, they also surrounded the place like the two soldier-level Monster Hunters teams. The next to return were the ordinary soldiers of the 6 great temples, but they were doing the same thing as the 5 Monster Hunters teams. Soon, there were thousands of people surrounding Long Haochen and Kair. On the battlefield, rescuing a comrade from the enemy's attack was a common occurrence. Comradeship and brotherly love often appeared in such situations, because the rescuer and the rescued were true friends of life and death. But what about rescuing 10, 100, or even 1,000 people on the battlefield? When Long Haochen led the number 21 and number 22 Monster Hunters teams into the battlefield, they became the focus of the friendly forces. They fought bravely and killed several rank 6 and rank 7 Monster Hunters teams. Then, they charged into the enemy's formation with irresistible force, becoming the vanguard of the counterattack. Perhaps the ordinary soldiers did not know how strong they were, but the generals of the Southern Guard Pass could naturally see that they were monster hunters. Moreover, whether it was their age or cultivation, they seemed to be soldier-level or general-level monster hunters. But what they did was far beyond what low-level monster hunters could do. If the one resisting the Moon Demon was an 8th or 9th rank expert, or even a 7th rank expert, the shock and sensation it caused wouldn't be so intense. Strong against strong. This was an unspoken rule on the battlefield. But when Long Haochen brazenly stepped out to meet the 8th rank Moon Demon, he only displayed the strength of a 6th rank expert. Moreover, the spectators didn't know that he had just broken through the 6th rank barrier at the time. 6th rank against 8th rank. What did this mean? The soldiers didn't know why the 8th rank Moon Demon had appeared on the battlefield below, but they were well aware that over 100 of their comrades had died at the hands of the 8th rank Moon Demon. If he was allowed to wreak havoc, then let alone counterattack, perhaps hundreds or even thousands of people would die at his hands. 8th rank. What kind of strength was that? But Long Haochen had met him head-on, not caring about the consequences. He had met the 8th rank Moon Demon head-on. The soldiers fought bravely. They hadn't felt any threat from a Moon Demon behind them. And by the time they returned, the Moon Demon had disappeared. The young knight who had blocked the Moon Demon's attack had fallen to the ground, unconscious in the arms of his comrade. A general of the Southern Guard Pass said with bloodshot eyes, "He is a hero. Salute a hero." As he spoke, he used his remaining arm to pull off his helmet and performed a standard knight salute in Long Haochen's direction. All the soldiers who had made it back alive, regardless of whether they were injured or not, followed the general's example and performed the most respectful salute to Long Haochen. It was a shocking scene. It wasn't just the soldiers who reacted this way. The other monster hunters were the same, including some general-grade monster hunters who had rushed back. Their expressions were ashamed. The average general-grade monster hunter's cultivation was only at the 6th rank. Against the 8th rank Moon Demon, they like Yang Wenjiao, chose to protect themselves first. Not long after, a golden figure suddenly descended from the sky, causing a loud bang. This person wore a dark golden armor with beautiful patterns. The moment he landed, everyone felt the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. It was majestic. "Get out of the way," the golden-armored knight shouted. At the same time, the armor on his body actually retreated like water ripples, revealing his original appearance. It was none other than the sacred knight, Captain Han Q. The soldiers outside might not recognize Han Q, but how could the monster hunters not recognize the sacred knight captain? They hurriedly stepped aside, forming a path in front of him. Han Q hurriedly walked in front of Long Haochen. When he saw the unconscious young knight, his eyes immediately focused. As soon as he turned around, he slapped Han Yu across the face, causing him to stagger. "Is this how a retainer knight like you protects your master? Why aren't you the one who's unconscious?" Han Q was practically roaring these words. He then hurriedly squatted down to check on Long Haochen's condition. Because she could feel the strong aura of light on his body, Kair did not stop him. Han Q was slapped by his grandfather, but he did not refute it. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and he struggled to get up and stand back to his original position. After a while, Han Q's face looked slightly better. His expression even became a little strange. Standing up again, Han Q's voice spread far away. "I am the Sacred Knight, Captain Han Q of the Knights Templars. All generals, lead your soldiers back to the camp to rest. Don't stay here any longer. This young knight's life is not in danger. In the name of the Knights Templars, I promise you that he will be restored to normal." A general who seemed to be the highest ranking among the soldiers strode forward. He was the one-armed general who had been the first to shout. He knelt down on one knee in Han Q's direction and loudly said, "Respected Sacred Knight, Captain Han Q, we request to know the name of the hero." Han Q fiercely pursed his lips. The people around him could clearly see that his eyes were a little red. Suddenly, this Sacred Knight captain shouted, "Stand up. There is no one here worthy of you kneeling to. This young man is not the only hero. Are you saying that you, the soldiers who sacrificed everything to protect the Southern Pass, are not heroes as well? You're all heroes as well." As soon as these words were spoken, all the soldiers of the Southern Pass fell into a brief silence. Moments later, they erupted in cheers like a tsunami. Yes, they had won this war. Even if it was a Pyrrhic victory, at least they had repelled the enemy. They were all heroes, heroes who protected humanity. The cheers didn't last for long. Moments later, as if someone had organized the cheers gradually came to a stop. They all turned to look at Han Q. Han Q understood what they were thinking. He nodded and said, "The hero you speak of is called Long Haochen. He is the captain of the 21st General Rank Monster Hunters. Remember his name. As the Deputy Temple Lord of the Knights Templars, I am proud to have such a knight. Long Haochen, Long Haochen, Long Haochen." The cheers rang out again, but this time there was only one name. For the Southern Pass, the previous process couldn't even be called a war, but a disaster. As the gateway to the south of the Temple League, the defensive strength of the Southern Pass was far superior to that of the Exorcist Mountain Pass. However, the demons had mobilized a particularly powerful force this time. It seemed like they wouldn't rest until they took down the Southern Pass. At this time, although the Layer race had retreated, cleaning up the battlefield was still extremely difficult. Many houses had been turned into temporary medical centers for the wounded. The civilians gradually joined the cleaning team. Their first task was to extinguish the fire. It took 3 days for the Southern Pass to completely clean up the battlefield and extinguish the fire. Fortunately, the demons hadn't launched another attack in these 3 days. Since the Southern Pass had suffered heavy losses, the demons, who were the ones attacking the city, had suffered even more damage than the Southern Pass. In these 3 days, the hero of the battlefield, Long Haochen, had received the best treatment in the Southern Pass. It couldn't be forgotten that this was the main hall of the Temple of the Priests. After this battle, the experts of the other professions might be lacking, but they definitely wouldn't lack high-grade priests. The Holy One, who had released a light forbidden spell at the last moment, had even personally healed Long Houchen, greatly increasing the speed of his recovery. After being unconscious for 2 days and 2 nights, Long Houchen woke up. He was currently residing in a room in the main hall of the Temple of the Priests. As the main hall of the Temple of the Priests, it was naturally one of the targets of the demon's attacks. Fortunately, the main hall had enough restrictions, so it was barely able to protect itself from being too seriously damaged. The executive branch wasn't so lucky. It had already been reduced to a pile of rubble. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Long Houchen quietly cultivated. Kair wasn't far from him, but Kair's pretty face was extremely cold. She wasn't on the bed, but was instead sitting cross-legged on a chair beside the bed, cultivating. The injuries Long Houchen had suffered this time could be said to be the most serious he had ever suffered since he became a knight. But at the same time, with the son of light constitution, this battle had also brought him the most benefits. First of all, under the powerful pressure of the rank 8 Moon Devil, he had directly broken through to rank 6 and become the youngest Radiance Knight in the history of Knights Templars. He was only 15 years old this year. The spiritual aperture had taken shape, and the Saint's spiritual stove had evolved. After the end of the battle, Haiyue also entered a deep slumber and returned to its own space. It seemed that it also had an opportunity to evolve. Not only that, but because Long Houchen's performance on the battlefield had been fully affirmed by the Temple of the Priests, the rank 9 Holy One had not only healed his internal and external injuries, but had also stimulated the circulation of his own spiritual power, which was a blessing in disguise. His external spiritual power had increased by at least 200 points, and his internal spiritual power had increased by more than 100 points due to the excessive stimulation of his potential. It could be said that Long Houchen had now officially become a Radiance Knight, and his overall strength had taken a qualitative leap compared to before. Of course, they had also paid a considerable price. A set of conjoined spirit-strengthening pills and other elixirs. Apart from Blue Rain and Hibiscus of Light, the rest of Long Houchen's equipment had to be repaired. His brilliant holy armor and brilliant holy shield had suffered too severe a blow, and their self-repair ability had been damaged. As for Light's punishment, because the spiritual power was too violent and Long Houchen could not control it effectively, it had suffered a considerable degree of damage during the final blow with the rank 8 Moon Devil. Fortunately, the repair of these 3 pieces of Radiance equipment had been completed at Southtown Pass. Otherwise, it would have been a considerable expense. After cultivating for a day and a night, Long Houchen felt the tide-like light elements in his body, and a smile appeared on his face. The so-called spirit aperture was actually a window that could directly communicate with the light elements. Spiritual power was still liquid internal spiritual power, but after having a spirit aperture, whether it was spiritual power recovery speed or cultivation speed, they had been greatly improved. It was also because the liquid spiritual power had been further compressed under the effect of the spirit aperture, and the consumption rate of skills had been greatly reduced. More importantly, after entering the rank 6, Long Houchen also had the ability to transform his spiritual power into wings. From now on, he could also soar in the air and fight. Not only had his personal strength improved, but the 21st general level monster hunters that Long Houchen was in had also received great rewards. The Southtown Pass military had directly awarded their team with 50,000 merit points. The other monster hunters had also received corresponding merit points, but compared to them, it was much less. Although emergency war missions were mandatory, they had to participate. But as long as they performed well in the mission, the merit points they received would be much more than other missions. At the very least, as long as the teams of soldier-level monster hunters could return alive, they would have no problem advancing to general level. The spirit aperture in his chest was in the shape of a golden halo. It wasn't large and seemed to be only an inch in diameter. The state of spiritual power circulation had also changed. It revolved around the halo and contracted in a divergent manner. Every time it contracted, it could absorb a large amount of light elements from the outside world. The Saint's spiritual stove naturally didn't disappear. It and the light elemental fairy, Yu Ting, were both within this halo. In other words, they seemed to have shrunk. What made Long Hao-Chen feel a bit strange was that the location of the spirit aperture was outside of his body. It just so happened that the eternal melody was imprinted on his chest. Ever since the spirit aperture was formed, it seemed to have completed a communication with the eternal melody. If he took off his outer clothes while cultivating, he would be able to see that every time the spirit aperture absorbed the light elements from the outside world, the eternal melody would emit a faint light. Slowly opening his eyes, Long Hao-Chen's eyes revealed a faint divine light. Although his body had already healed when he recovered from his cultivation state, he still felt a bit sore all over, and his head hurt even more. This wasn't the result of his injuries, but rather the aftereffects of using an ability that surpassed his own strength that day. In order to resist the Moon Devil, he had taken as many as 4 kinds of medicinal pills. In addition to the integration of Hao Yue and the spiritual power of his companions, he was directly pushed to the peak of the 7th level. Moreover, he was at the peak of the 7th level with a spiritual power that surpassed the 7th level. At that time, his total spiritual power at his peak state was close to 24,000 points. How difficult was it for him to endure it? The reason why he didn't let the 22nd General Rank Monster Hunters also take the conjoined Spirit-Enhancing Pill was because he was completely certain that no one among the 22nd General Rank Monster Hunters would be able to endure the terrifying spiritual power of the conjoined Spirit-Enhancing Pill. They would certainly explode and die. After actually taking the pill, the situation was completely different from what Lin Xin had initially said. There was simply no way to control the spiritual power that was transmitted from the back. If it wasn't for the blood contract between him and Hao Yue, and the fact that his own external spiritual power wasn't ordinary, how could he have endured such a terrifying spiritual power impact by relying on a single vigorous pill? Even now, when he thought about it, Long Hao-Chen still felt some lingering fear. However, if he had to choose again, he still wouldn't back down, and he didn't regret it at all. Stretching his body, Long Hao-Chen's gaze gradually softened. No matter what, this experience was extremely precious to him. Truly experiencing the power of a 7th level and above was not something that an ordinary low-level combatant could do. This experience also allowed him to have a full understanding of that realm. This way, the process of cultivation in the future would be much easier. At the same time, there would also be improvements in the use of skills. The feeling of his body being filled with spiritual power, as if it was endless, was simply too wonderful. Especially the last slash. Even the air was split by the Shura slash, and the space was torn apart. Even with the 8th level of the Moon Devil strength, it couldn't withstand the power of that strike. That feeling was simply too wonderful. He hoped that he could reach the 7th level as soon as possible. Father had said that when my cultivation reached the 7th tier, I could go find him and Mother. At the thought of this, Long Hao-Chen's heart was burning with passion. As a 15-year-old Radiance Knight, no matter how calm his mind was, he couldn't help but feel proud of himself at this time. This was not just because of his strength. The rapid improvement was also a manifestation of willpower and luck. Long Hao-Chen's gaze shifted to Kai, who was in a state of cultivation, and was slightly stunned. In the past, he and Kai had always stayed in the same room, and the two of them would also cultivate together on the bed at night. Why was Kai sitting on the chair below him now? Was she feeling unwell? Just as Long Hao-Chen was feeling puzzled, Kai-Er's body moved slightly, and she put down her legs that were sitting cross-legged. This meant that she had stopped her cultivation state. She had obviously sensed that Long Hao-Chen had woken up from his cultivation. Long Hao-Chen hurriedly leaned forward, wanting to pull one of Kai-Er's hands and ask her what had happened after he had fainted. However, to his surprise, Kai-Er shook off his hand and refused to let him ride on it. What's wrong with Kai? Long Hao-Chen was shocked and hurriedly tried to pull her hand again. Just like before, Kai-Er shook off his hand. This time, she stood up and walked to the side. With her back facing Long Hao-Chen, she clearly exuded a hint of coldness. Long Hao-Chen was stunned. Is Kai-Er angry? This is the only reason she won't let me touch her. But why is she angry? As his memory gradually returned, Long Haochen also understood the reason why Kai was angry. The expression on his face suddenly became a little strange. He smiled and moved closer to Kai side. Kai still wanted to move away, but after all, she had lost 4 of her 6 senses, and the room was very narrow. So Long Haochen hugged her slender waist from behind. Kai struggled hard and rubbed her perky buttocks against Long Haochen's body. Although Long Haochen was young, it was precisely because of this that he was more hot-blooded. Even if he didn't understand, his body would still have a reaction. Suddenly feeling that Long Haochen's body was a little stiff, Kai suddenly stopped moving. Of course, she didn't feel the same as Long Haochen. She thought that she had touched Long Haochen's wound. Long Haochen slightly moved his body a little away to avoid the awkwardness. Kai was younger than him. She was still a little away from 15 years old. Although Long Haochen gradually understood some things between men and women, they were still so young. Now was obviously not the time to feel these things. He freed one hand and directly wrote on Kai's back. The words he wrote were very simple. He directly wrote 3 words. I was wrong. Kai's body trembled slightly. Suddenly, she turned around and punched Long Haochen's shoulder with a pair of small fists. She couldn't see, she couldn't speak, and she couldn't hear. But tears still flowed down. Long Haochen only felt as if his heart had been grabbed by an enemy. The pain was unbearable. Kai, who had already lost her 4 senses, cried silently. To him, it was even more painful than enduring the moon demon's attack. Hugging her tightly in his arms, Long Haochen already didn't know what to say to her. At this time, he only felt pain in his heart. He would only admit his mistake to Kai, but he wouldn't promise her what he would do if the same situation happened again. In fact, he couldn't promise Kai anything, because he would still make the same choice. How could he let Kai accompany him to death? At that time, he hadn't been able to kill the moon demon with 1 strike. Long Haochen felt that he was finished. He didn't have the strength to resist at all. Even the huge spiritual power brought by the body-enhancing pill had been used up. What could he do? He could only try his best to stall for time. So, he cut off the life-sharing effect of the soul chain. He believed that the general level 22 monster hunters would protect his companions. He couldn't retreat because the moon demon's hatred was completely focused on him. Only by dying could he protect his companions. After all, the moon demon was heavily injured and couldn't stay for long. Kai's struggle gradually turned into sobs. She stretched her arms out from under Long Haochen's armpits and hugged his broad back tightly. She hugged him very, very tightly. On that day, when Long Haochen threw her towards Wang Yuanyuan, the fear that had appeared when she was 3 years old appeared again. At that moment, Kai felt as if her heart was about to freeze. It's over, my fool, he's going to die. That feeling couldn't be described with words. Kai felt as if her heart was going to follow Long Haochen. Even after she found out that Long Haochen didn't die, the pain in her heart continued until now. She was really afraid. Afraid that the same situation would happen again. Afraid that Long Haochen would abandon her and die alone. Chapter 98. If she didn't cherish him so much, she wouldn't be in so much pain. How could Kai suppress her emotions? However, no matter how much she resented Long Haochen for pushing her away, the moment she was embraced by him, all her resentment and hatred turned into endless love. When she couldn't hold back her tears, she was no longer able to break free from Long Haochen's embrace. The two of them hugged each other for a long time without saying a word. Long Haochen could feel Kai's emotions at this moment. He continuously and gently scratched the word "I'm sorry" on her back, but Kai didn't move at all. Her tears continued to flow. Hugging her, he gently sat down on the bed. Just as Long Haochen was about to lower his head to search for her lips and use his own warmth to warm her trembling heart, suddenly, there was a light knock on the door. "Leader, are you awake?" Sima Xian's voice came from outside. Long Haochen hurriedly raised his head and lightly wrote a few words on Kai's back. Although she was extremely unwilling, Kai still let go. Instead, Long Haochen hugged her tightly and brought her to the door. After a series of venting, the sadness in Kai's heart finally weakened a lot. Her delicate body gently trembled as she buried her delicate face in Long Haochen's shoulder, unwilling to let others see her crying. Long Haochen opened the door and saw a shiny bald head. Sima. Seeing Long Haochen, Sima Xian was instantly overjoyed. He opened his arms and was about to hug Long Haochen, but then he saw Kai in Long Haochen's arms. Only then did he dispel his thoughts and embarrassedly retracted his arms. "Boss, how are you? Are you all right? Did Brother Yao's elixir have any side effects?" None of them were fools. When Long Haochen shouted that the 22nd General Grey Demon Hunt Squad wasn't allowed to use the conjoined spirit increasing pellets, they guessed that there was a problem with the pellets, and this was what they were most worried about. Long Haochen shook his head and said, "I'm fine. It's just that my body still needs a few days to recover. My meridians were stretched by too much spiritual power, but the damage has been repaired. I'll be fine after a few days." Sima Xian let out a long sigh and said, "Boss, is there a problem with the conjoined elixir?" Long Haochen smiled bitterly and said, "There's a little problem. Although it's not a big problem, it's not something that can be used by a grade 5 profession. Go back and tell Commander Liu Shi that if he wants to use the conjoined spirit-increasing pill, he has to wait until he's at least at the 6th level, and he has to use it together with the vigorous pill." After thinking for a moment, he muttered, "It's best if he only uses it after he's at the 7th level." After thinking for a while, he said, "It's best to wait until he's grade 7. Sima Xian said in annoyance, "I knew it was Brother Yao who caused this." Long Haochen smiled and shook his head. "You can't say that." Long Haochen shook his head and said, "You can't say that. If it wasn't for the conjoined elixir, I'm afraid we wouldn't have survived until now. That moon demon is really strong. He's not someone we can fight against now." Speaking of this, he couldn't help but think of Yu Yi and his own experience in the Moon Demon Palace. This time, he only met a young moon demon. However, back in the Moon Demon Palace, he met the strongest moon demons, including the Moon Demon. An ordinary moon demon was already so strong. How strong would the Moon Demon, who was ranked 2nd among the 72 demons, be? Thinking of this, Long Haochen's gaze sharpened. Even though he was blessed by the heavens with his current cultivation base at his current age, he was still at the peak of his cultivation base. Even at his age, he was still blessed by the heavens with his cultivation. This was the difference between people. His eyes were always looking forward. "Sima, why are you looking for me?" Long Haochen was comforting Kai, and really didn't have the mood to continue talking to Sima. Now that the war was temporarily over, he also wanted a rest. Sima Xian suddenly came to a realization. Yes. Holy Knight Elder asked me to inform you that if you're awake, you should head over for a meeting." "Meeting? What meeting?" Long Haochen looked at Sima Xian doubtfully. Sima Xian shrugged and said, "I don't know either. He just said to ask you to go to the Temple of the Priests' large conference room. Just go there directly. Oh, and bring the vice captain along." Long Haochen nodded and said, "All right, I got it. I'll head over immediately." He was previously only wearing his underwear during his training, so he had to change his clothes no matter what. Sima Xian looked at Long Haochen, then looked at Kai, and chuckled mischievously. I understand. Boss, I'll head back first." With that, he immediately ran off. Long Haochen helplessly closed the door. He wasn't afraid of being misunderstood since he and Kai were already so close. He first told Kai about Han Q's meeting, then changed his clothes. Kai also used this time to adjust her emotions. Her delicate nose was still a little red from crying, but it didn't affect her beauty at all. Instead, it made her look even more lovable. Kai put on her veil, and Long Haochen put his arm around her slender waist as they left the room. The main hall of the Temple of the Priests was huge, but it wasn't difficult to find the large conference room. People had mouths under their noses, so they just had to ask around casually to find out. At this time, the atmosphere in the main hall of the Temple of the Priests was very solemn. There was an endless stream of people coming and going, and, judging from their attire, there were people from all 6 great temples. This was no longer just the main hall of the Temple of the Priests, but also the temporary executive government of the Southern Pass. Everything naturally had to be handled here, so it would be strange if it wasn't bustling. Soon, Long Haochen found a location of the large conference room. There were 2 guards standing at the door. When they saw Long Haochen approaching with Kai they immediately raised their arms to stop them. Who are you? This is the conference room. Don't approach. The leaders are all having a meeting inside. Long Haochen said very politely, My name is Long Haochen. Holy Knight Han Q asked us to come to the meeting. Long Haochen? Hearing these 3 words, the 2 guards were shocked at the same time. After looking at each other, the look in their eyes suddenly turned into disbelief. The guard on the left said, You really are Long Haochen? The hero who saved over 1,000 of his comrades? Long Haochen smiled and said, I don't deserve to be called a hero, but I am Long Haochen. The guard on the right said with a look of disbelief, No, he must be a fake. How old is he? How can he be the hero who can resist rank 8? Don't tell me he's an imposter. As he said this, the guard took a step forward and grabbed Long Haochen's shoulder. The reason why he said that Long Haochen was an imposter was simple. What kind of person was the hero in their hearts? Long Haochen. He was the hero who led the monster hunters to charge through the enemy's ranks, and even stopped the rank 8 moon demon's attack. To be able to fight against a rank 8 powerhouse, what kind of strength was that? Even with the help of a team, it should be at least rank 6 and above. This young man in front of them, was he even 20 years old? Because Long Haochen was in a rush, he was only dressed in simple cotton clothes. He looked like a neighbor's boy, and not at all like a great hero. The other party directly made a move, causing Long Haochen to feel a little dissatisfied. He subconsciously took a step back, his left hand moving upwards to block the opponent's right palm. At the same time, his body turned halfway, and he moved Kair to the side so that she would not be hit by the other party's attack. The 2 hands clashed. The guard's movements were fast, and he directly grabbed Long Haochen's wrist. Right at this time, a golden light shone out from Long Haochen's left hand. Within the golden light, Long Haochen's wrist trembled slightly. Instantly, the guard's hand that had just touched his wrist was repelled, as though he had been electrocuted. His body also stumbled back a step. Now that it was wartime, everything was simple. These 2 guards were also temporarily transferred over, and were both type 5 warriors. Long Haochen used a single hand to push the guard away, and the expressions of the 2 guards changed. To be able to push a type 5 warrior away, could it be that he really is? They did not continue to make a move. Instead, the guard who had questioned Long Haochen first asked, Are you really Long Haochen? All right, then you should be the 21st General Level Monster Hunters Regiment leader. Could you allow us to verify your token? Long Haochen said helplessly, Wouldn't it have been better if you had done this earlier? As he said that, he took out the token and handed it over. This time, the expressions of the 2 guards really changed, especially the one who had just attacked Long Haochen. He quickly took a few steps forward and respectfully handed the token back to Long Haochen. His face was even redder. Regiment Leader Long, please come in. The 2 guards stepped aside and invited Long Haochen and Kair into the large conference room. Long Haochen naturally would not argue with them. They were just doing their duty. Slowly walking into the conference room, he subconsciously stopped in his tracks. The door of the conference room was at the side, and after entering the door, there was a huge screen, and on the screen, there were hundreds of people worshiping a statue. That statue was the goddess of light. Walking to the side of the screen and looking inside, the conference room of the Temple of the Priests was really big. It was simply a huge palace. Looking from here, the whole conference room was rectangular, and the dome was more than 20 meters high, with dazzling crystal palace lanterns hanging from it. There were comfortable sofas inside, and at the front was a rostrum about 5 meters high. At this time, a group of people on a rostrum were sitting around a long table, talking. Obviously, that was the place where the conference was held. There were at least 30 people here. Long Haochen saw Han Q at a glance, but what surprised him was that with Han Q's status, he was only sitting on one side, not on the main seat, not even the second seat. Sitting on the main seat was a white-haired old man. He was also wearing a white robe, and it was hard to tell what his profession was, but he just sat there quietly and naturally became the center of attention. Even if he did not speak, it seemed that no one would ignore his existence. From time to time, They would look at the white-haired old man respectfully. This must be the saint of the temple of the priests, right? Long Houchin thought to himself. He and Kai were still quite a distance away from the rostrum. As he was thinking, a voice came from the rostrum. Didn't I say that no one is allowed to disturb our conference? The voice belonged to a priest in a golden robe. This priest looked much younger, around 40 years of age, and there was a trace of anger on his stern face. Long Houchin hurriedly walked out from behind the screen with Kai in his arms. Although he was still quite a distance away, he still bowed towards the rostrum and said, Captain Long Houchin of the 21st General Rank Monster Hunters is here to report for duty. Sir Saint Knight Elder has asked me to attend this conference. Hearing the name Long Houchin, everyone in the conference room turned to look at him, including the white-haired old man. Without a doubt, these people were the absolute upper echelons of the Southgard Pass. As they looked at Long Houchin, their gazes were all different. Some were surprised, some were amazed, but most were filled with praise. They had all heard of Long Houchin's achievements, and now that they were seeing him with their own eyes, they were even more shocked by his age. The white-haired old man smiled and nodded towards Long Houchin. His gentle gaze gave off a feeling like a spring breeze, and it was a warm and corporeal warmth. His warm aura even made Long Houchin feel as if the soreness in his body had lessened a bit. Han Q chuckled. He stood up and beckoned to Long Houchin and Kai, saying, Hurry up and come over. Yes. Long Houchin responded and hurriedly brought Kai over. As he walked, his expression was very interesting. Why did Master Ancestor call us over for such an important conference? How could Kai and I have the qualifications to participate in a conference of this level? There was no need to ask to guess that they were discussing how to deal with the demons in the Southgard Pass. Han Q stood up. He waited until Long Houchin and Kai walked onto the rostrum before he walked out from behind his seat. Standing with him was another person that Long Houchin and Kai were familiar with. He was the Assassin Temple's Deputy Temple Master, Ing Suifeng. The reinforcements this time were led by him and Han Q. Han Q first bowed to the white-clothed old man and then smiled. Old Ling, everyone, allow me to introduce you. This is Long Houchin, the little hero of our war. Long Houchin, how are your injuries? Long Houchin hurriedly gave everyone a standard knight's salute. However, he still had his arm around Kai, so his actions were a bit strange. He respectfully said, Lord Holy Knight Elder, my injuries are already healed. Han Yin let out a sigh and said, This child, what should I say about you? From the perspective of a knight, you did the right thing. However, from the perspective of the Alliance's overall situation, you were too rash. Everyone, although Long Houchin is still young, he holds an important position in our Knights Templars. In order to nurture the younger generation, I have also called him over to sit in on this conference and apologize to everyone. The middle-aged priest who had shouted earlier had a dark expression and said, Old Han, this doesn't seem to follow the rules. We will not forget this little brother's achievements, but our conference this time is of great importance. Han Q looked straight at this person and said seriously, Brother Ling, Long Houchin is not only the leader of a general-tier monster hunters, but also the only candidate for the next Temple Master of our Knights Templars. As long as he can live, then the next Temple Master of the Knights Templars will definitely be him. There are no other candidates. As soon as Han Q said this, everyone present couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. What did that mean? The only candidate? How old was this child? Chapter 99. In the 6 Great Temples, there was a term called Temple Master Candidate. It was also the preparation that the Temple Masters made to nurture their successors. Only those who were talented and had achieved a certain level of success could receive this honor. However, in history, those who could become the Temple Master Candidate of the 6 Great Temple Masters were at least at the 7th stage. And it was definitely not just one. Let's not talk about whether the candidates would die in battle, but their mentality also needed a long time to be tested. This was related to the future of the 6 Great Temple Masters and even the Temple League. None of the Temple Masters would make a rash decision. The people present had never heard of such a young candidate, let alone the only one. For a moment, everyone was unable to accept it. At this time, Ing Suifeng also spoke. The lady beside Long Haochen, Kai Er, is also the only candidate for the next temple master of our assassin temple. Her situation is the same as Long Haochen's. Because she used a rather forbidden ability to carry out the previous Monster Hunter's mission, she temporarily lost her sight, hearing, taste, and smell, so she can't greet you. Please forgive her. Han Qiu and Ing Suifeng's words undoubtedly scared the people in front of them, and it also scared the stunned Long Haochen. The Temple League only had a total of 6 great temples. At this moment, 2 of the temple masters actually expressed that there was only one candidate for the next temple master, and from the looks of it, these 2 were only children. The people from the other temple masters couldn't understand what the Knights Templars and Assassin Temple were thinking at all. Let's not talk about the temperament of these 2 children first. How could these 2 temple masters be so sure that they could live to inherit the position of temple master? They were probably not even 20 years old yet, and they were members of the Monster Hunters. Although the Monster Hunters were made up of elites, the danger they faced during the mission was also great. The priest that Han Qiu called Brother Ling said, "Since that's the case, let's invite these 2 little friends to listen." However, Old Han, the news you brought us is too shocking. The only candidate, what are you guys trying to do? Han Qian smiled faintly, saying with a card up his sleeve, "I hope everyone will keep this matter secret. It doesn't matter if our own people know, but if the demon race knows, there'll be big trouble." The white-haired old man sitting at the head of the table nodded slightly and said, "Han Qiu is right. Don't talk nonsense when you go out." These 2 kids were really interesting. Han Qiu, Ing Suifeng, your 2 great temples have picked up a treasure. Facing this white-haired old man, Han Qian actually bowed to a junior and respectfully said, "Many thanks for the great saint's praise." The white-haired elder smiled and nodded. His eyes swept over Long Haochen again and sighed. "What a pity, what a pity." Han Qiu smiled. Of course, he knew what the white-haired elder was referring to. He was obviously regretting that Long Haochen was not from the Temple of the Priests. Obviously, with Long Haochen's talent, if he was from the Temple of the Priests, he would definitely be the leader of the younger generation. He would probably be the only candidate. Of course, this situation was obviously impossible. Don't forget who Long Haochen's father was. Priest Ling said, "Let's continue the meeting." Han Qiu nodded and whispered to Long Haochen, "Haochen, this is Grandpa Ling Xiao. After the meeting, you must thank Grandpa Ling. He healed most of your injuries." After saying this, Han Qiu sat back in his seat and continued the meeting. Long Haochen did not expect that the stern-looking priest was the one who healed him. Although he had been unconscious for 2 days, he could faintly feel a warm spiritual force lingering in his body. The damaged meridians in his body were all healed by this warm spiritual force. Without a doubt, it was this Lord Priest. Wearing a golden robe, it seemed to represent a saint. If that was the case, what rank was this white-haired elder? It seemed that his status here was unparalleled, as if everyone here was his junior. Ling Xiao said, "I will continue to report the current situation. We have already cleaned up the battlefield. This time, the Southern Guard Pass can be said to have suffered heavy losses. As the consul of the Southern Guard Pass, I will take full responsibility. If I am not in command, I will report it to the Alliance." Han Qiu sighed and said, "Brother Ling, you can't say that. How can you be blamed for this?" The enemy had come too suddenly. 12 demon gods came together, and half of them are ranked in the top 36. I'm afraid that none of our passes can withstand such a lineup. I don't know what the demons are up to this time. If not for Senior Ling, even if we arrived, it would have been useless. Ling Zhao's eyes were a little dim. He sighed and said, "Although I don't know why the demons are like this, we have suffered heavy losses this time. Of the 200,000 soldiers stationed at the Southern Guard Pass, only 50,000 are left, and half of them are injured. The magic cannons of the Southern Guard Pass have all been destroyed. More than a third of the priests of our Temple of the Priests have perished. More than 6 cardinal bishops and above have perished." At this point, he couldn't bear it anymore. He slammed his palm on the table, his eyes filled with pain. The white-haired old man frowned and said, Ling Xiao, calm down. You are now the manager of the Temple of the Priests. How can you be so impatient? Ling Xiao respectfully bowed his head to the white-haired old man and said, Yes, grandfather. As soon as the word grandfather came out, Long Haochen's heart shook. This is a saint. A saint's grandfather. This old man was probably close to 200 years old. This was the oldest person Long Haochen had seen after the legendary monster hunters. Moreover, the aura exuding from this old man was in no way inferior to that of the 6 demon hunters. After slightly controlling his emotions, Ling Xiao continued. In this battle, the Southern Guard Pass has been exhausted in all aspects. It can be said that it has shaken its foundation. If it weren't for Brother Han and Brother Ing leading the reinforcements, the Southern Guard Pass might have been destroyed. However, we have also brought great losses to the enemy. The demons' attack suddenly started half a month ago, and without any warning. Our spies among the demons didn't receive any news at all. This time, not only did the demons mobilize the 12 demon gods, but they also mobilized an army of nearly 1 million to launch a continuous and fierce attack day and night. We relied on the defense of the Southern Guard Pass. Although it was broken through in the end, the demons lost at least half of their forces, and the wounded are innumerable. Although the 12 demon gods didn't die, at least 8 of them were seriously injured and won't be able to join the battle for a while. The demons have at least 3 times as many powerhouses of the 7th grade and above as we did. There was finally some excitement in Ling Xiao's voice. That's right. Comparatively speaking, the Temple League couldn't really say that the Southern Guard Pass lost this battle. Although it was almost broken through, they had also brought great losses to the demons. Although the demons had a large population and their territory was 3 times that of the Temple League, cannon fodder was easy to cultivate, while the number of true powerhouses was still limited. Don't look down on the powerful demons who were born with great strength. Their reproductive ability was also a big problem. Otherwise, how could a human race have survived until now? In this battle, the Southern Guard Pass suffered great losses, and the demons were the same. The only pity was that they didn't manage to kill many demon gods. Han Q said, Brother Ling, don't worry. We are only the first batch of reinforcements. When we receive your request for help, the Alliance has already taken action and gathered a large army to support you. Within 10 days, at least 150,000 troops will arrive and listen to the Southern Guard Pass orders. The Temple League being able to defend their territory for thousands of years was definitely not a lucky thing. The entire Alliance had a complete set of plans to deal with the war. There were many natural moats, like the Exorcist Mountain Pass at the border between the Temple League and the demons. Even the Southern Guard Pass had a very complicated terrain. Although it wasn't a natural stronghold like the Exorcist Mountain Pass, the left side of the Southern Guard Pass was a large lake with surging waves, while the front and right side were large hilly areas. This made it impossible for the demons to besiege the city, and they could only attack from the front and sides. The Temple League stationed a large number of troops in every important town along the border, and the 6 temples were stationed at the 6 most important passes. In addition, the Temple League's main army was gathered near the Holy City. If there was a problem there, they would immediately mobilize reinforcements. This was also why the Holy City was located right at the heart of the Temple League. The Temple League's territory wasn't as vast as the demons, but similarly, it only took 10 days to travel from the Holy City to the 6 impregnable passes, and it would be even faster if they were to rush. Therefore, the reinforcements wouldn't be slow. This time, the Southern Guard Pass was almost lost, so the Holy City would naturally provide support at the first opportunity. Ling Xiao nodded and said, That's for the best. I've already ordered the craftsmen and alchemists of the surrounding cities to rush to the Southern Guard Pass and repair the city's defenses as quickly as possible. We can't give the enemy any opportunities. Han Q said, Brother Ling, do you know why the demons suddenly launched such a fierce attack? This has never happened in the past few years, so they must have some ulterior motives. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly and said, We only understood the reason after the demons began their attack. Isn't it for the illusory paradise? Hearing the words illusory paradise, Han Q's face immediately revealed a shocked expression. Brother Ling, are you saying that the illusory paradise is about to open again? Ling Xiao nodded and said, even grandfather only felt the elemental fluctuations from the illusory paradise in the past few days. Within a month, the illusory paradise will open again. Han Q said with a puzzled expression. Then how did the demons know? The illusory paradise is within our borders, so the demons can't investigate at close range. Moreover, even Elder Ling only discovered it recently. The white-haired old man sighed and said, it should be the star demon who made his move. As the great prophet of the demons, his divination ability is unparalleled in the world. He must have felt the changes here. Han Q suddenly said, no wonder. To mobilize so many troops to attack the city without us spies' knowledge. The Demon Emperor must have given a strict order. Since that's the case, I need to quickly report to the Alliance and increase the number of reinforcements. The white-haired old man nodded and said, the illusory paradise is extremely important and only opens irregularly every 100 years. We can't let the demons succeed. Fortunately, those old fellows from the demon god's fall are threatening the Demon Emperor. Otherwise, for the sake of the illusory paradise, the Demon Emperor might personally come. Han Q frowned and said, the Star Demon's divination ability makes us too passive. Elderling, do you have any suggestions? The white-haired old man thought for a moment and said, although the illusory paradise is full of opportunities, it is also full of danger. The demons just want to enter and get a share. Currently, our casualties are too severe. If we continue to fight recklessly, I'm afraid the Southern Guard Pass will be completely destroyed. Of course, at that time, it's impossible for the demons not to leave behind a few demon gods. At this point, the white-haired old man's originally calm aura suddenly became strong, and all the sounds in the conference room seemed to be suppressed at this moment. Don't the demons just want to enter the illusory paradise to take a look? They always thought that we could contend against them because of the existence of the illusory paradise. Since that's the case, let them take a look. Although the illusory paradise is good, how can we rely on it to become stronger? Hearing the white-haired old man's words, Han Q and Ing Suifeng turned pale with fright and said almost at the same time, no. The white-haired elder smiled and said, let me finish what I have to say. The demons also know that if we go all out, we can just forcefully close the illusory paradise. At that time, they won't be able to obtain anything. The Southern Guard Pass is difficult to attack from the outside, but it's not difficult to attack from the inside. Even if they can occupy this place for a short period of time, as long as the Alliance mobilizes their army, they will be driven out. So, if we propose to give the demons a few spots to enter the illusory paradise, then the possibility of them agreeing is very high. Han Q said anxiously, but, Elder Ling, the illusory paradise is too important to us. How can we let the demons? The white-haired old man waved his hand and said, no one knows the situation in the illusory paradise better than I do. I have entered it twice. In the illusory paradise, danger and opportunity come together. But there is one thing. Most of the treasures inside are inclined towards the light attribute, and the number of treasures produced every 100 years never exceeds 20. Simply put, the symbolic meaning of the illusory paradise is actually greater than its practical significance. No matter how strong the representatives sent by the demons are, I believe that they can only obtain 40% of the harvest at most. If we can reduce the casualties of at least hundreds of thousands of soldiers and civilians, this old man thinks it's worth it. Besides, can we let the demons enter the illusory paradise for nothing? Their main reason is to go in and take a look. Similarly, the demons also have secrets that we want to know. Under an equivalent exchange, it's not certain who will lose out. The old man's eyes flashed with wisdom, and his voice made everyone fall into deep thought. No one saw a flash of shame in the old man's eyes. His proposal was, of course, feasible, but it also had its own selfish motives. If the demons really attacked the Southern Guard Pass at all costs, in the end, not only would the pass be destroyed, but the temple of the priests would also be destroyed. Inside the southern guard pass was the main hall of the temple of the priests. It could be said that 80% of the temple of the priests' strength was here. Once the southern guard pass was destroyed, the temple of the priests would definitely not be able to recover. As the former temple master of the temple of the priests and the deputy leader of the temple league, Old Ling did not want to see such a situation happen. Of course, he did not only do it for the temple of the priests, but also for the entire alliance. Sighing softly, Old Ling continued, "Let this old man act alone for once. As for the alliance, I will personally explain it to the alliance leader. The temple of the priests will not take any of the benefits obtained from the demons. The alliance will take them all." Han Q was a shrewd man. After Old Ling made this proposal, he knew that the matter had been decided, and he could not refute it. In order to resist the demons, the Southern Guard Pass and the Temple of the Priests had sacrificed too much. If the Southern Guard Pass was really destroyed, the alliance would definitely be greatly shaken. After a moment of silence, Han Q nodded with some difficulty and said, "All right, since Old Ling has decided, I will unconditionally support and cooperate. However, I must report this matter to the alliance. Please forgive me." Old Ling smiled and said, "That is what I should do." Ling Xiao, send a messenger to contact the demons. Ask them to negotiate. "Yes, grandfather." Long Haochen had been watching coldly from the sidelines. With his status, it was already a great honor to be able to sit in on such a high-level meeting. It was the first time he had heard of the name Dream Paradise. Looking at the expressions of everyone present, there seemed to be some incredible treasure inside. At the same time, he also noticed Old Ling's domineering attitude. Although he had a smile on his face, this powerful veteran saint had absolute authority. Even Han Q and Ing Suifeng, who represented the Holy Alliance, could not refute the decision he made. Moreover, since he had called the fallen demon monster hunters and the other legendary experts old geezers, it meant that he was indeed a legendary expert of the same generation as the fallen demon hunters. The meeting continued, and they discussed how to restore the Southern Guard Pass as soon as possible. It was not clear whether the negotiations would succeed, so they had to prepare for both sides. 2 hours later, Ling Xiao announced the end of the meeting. Old Ling was the first to stand, but his gaze fell on Long Haochen and Kair, who were sitting in the back row. He smiled and said, "Dream Paradise is a great opportunity that only opens once every 100 years. Since these two young people are the future successors of the Knights Templars and the Temple of the Assassins, then I will give you a gift. Then this old man will give you a gift. I hope that you will be able to gain something from the illusory paradise." As he spoke, without anyone seeing Old Ling do anything, 2 balls of white light flew in front of Long Haochen and Kair. Long Haochen subconsciously raised his hand and caught it. He saw 2 sparkling milky white pearls fall into his palm. What surprised him even more was that the aura these 2 pearls emitted was actually of the spatial attribute. Each pearl was only the size of a thumb, and there seemed to be milk rippling inside them. It looked very strange. "Thank you, Senior." Long Haochen hurriedly stood up with Kair and respectfully bowed to Old Ling Han Qian, and Ing Shufeng, on the other hand, revealed looks of pleasant surprise. Old Ling waved his hand, turned around, and left. The other higher-ups of the Southern Guard Pass and the reinforcements looked at Long Haochen and Kair with envy. The others also left the conference room. Han Q beckoned to Long Haochen, indicating that he and Kair should not leave. Long Haochen put his arm around Kair's waist and walked in front of Han Q. Han Q, Ing Suifeng, and the current temple master of the Temple of the Priests, Ling Xiao, stood together and looked at him. Long Haochen remembered Han Q's words from before. He first bowed to Ling Xiao and said, "Thank you, Grandpa Ling, for your kindness in healing me." When Ling Xiao heard him call him Grandpa Ling, a smile appeared on his serious face. He nodded and said, "What are you thanking me for? If you thank me for healing you, then shouldn't I also thank you for saving the lives of thousands of my soldiers? We're just doing our duty." Han Q, who was at the side, said unhappily, "Old Ling, it looks like you won't be able to change your bad mouth for the rest of your life. Your heart is the softest, but your mouth stinks. Ling Xiao snorted and said, in any case, I broke through to the 9th tier, but some people are still at the 8th tier, staring at me. Before Han Qiu could say anything, Ying Suifeng, who was at the side, was already unhappy. Hey, old Ling, don't stab him in the wound. The impact is too big. Ling Xiao finally smiled. I forgot that you, a sneaky guy, haven't broken through either. Han Qiu cooperated with him and said to Ying Suifeng, he did it on purpose. Ying Suifeng did not fall for it. He shrugged and said, there's nothing I can do. He's at the 9th tier, and I can't beat him. I endured it. Ling Xiao scolded with a smile. All right, you two don't have any shame. Do you want the children to laugh at you? So what if I broke through to the 9th tier? I fail more than you. His face, which had a little smile just now, immediately darkened. Han Qiu patted his shoulder and said, it's been so many years, and you still can't let it go. What can I say about you? Are you really planning on letting the Ling family go extinct? Ling Xiao smiled miserably and said, what can I do? Apart from her, can there be anyone else in my heart? Don't tell me you can forget her. Han Qiu suddenly said angrily, since you can't let it go, why don't you go find her? Is it her or the temple of the priest's temple master position that you can't let go? Ling Xiao shook his head and said, I don't have the face to go find her. In this world, I hate Endless Night first, and I hate myself second. I already don't want to ask for her forgiveness. My last wish in this life is to die together with that bastard Endless Night. Long Haochen stood at the side and listened in confusion. He only vaguely felt that this seemed to involve the grudges of the older generation. As for the Endless Night that Ling Xiao mentioned, he had never heard of him before. Han Qiu and Ying Suifeng both knitted their brows, but surprisingly didn't try to persuade Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao said, all right, let's not talk about this. Let's get down to business. Old Han, the old Gramps, gave the item to these two brats. What do you say? This is a once-in-100-years opportunity. Han Qiu hesitated for a moment and said, it really is a good opportunity, but this brat really doesn't let me feel at ease. He even dared to charge up against the 8th stage moon demon. This time, there are demons that have entered. I'm still a bit worried. Ling Xiao was somewhat astonished and said, it seems like what you said is true. These two children really are the future successors of your two great temple. But it's no wonder. This kid Haochen isn't even 20 yet, but he actually already broke through to the 6th stage. He also has the spirit of a knight. He really is a rare talent. Han Qiu said resolutely, Old Ling regarding the dream realm. Only you temple of the priest people are most clear about it. Show me the right way, please. How dangerous is it exactly? Ling Xiao smiled and said, then you have to tell me the truth. Why can these two children be the only candidates? Talent is one thing, but it's too risky for your two great temple to keep only one candidate. There must be other reasons. If they want to grow up, no matter how fast they are, it will still take at least 10 years. Are the various missions of the monster hunters not dangerous? Han Qiu and Ying Suifeng looked at each other. Ying Suifeng said, all right, we are all old brothers who have gone through life and death together. You are also the temple master of the temple of the priests, so there's no harm in telling you. Old Ling has probably already seen some clues. Han Qiu waved his hand, and a golden light enveloped all 5 of them. He indicated to Long Haochen and said, tell him how old you are this year. Long Haochen said, this junior is 15 this year. Kaier is still a little short of 15. Even though Ling Xiao was a saint, he couldn't help but open his mouth wide. 15? You broke through to the 6th rank at 15? Oh my God. If you didn't use any secret techniques, then what is your innate internal spiritual power? The 6 great temples all had some secret techniques that spoiled things through excessive enthusiasm. However, it was very difficult to improve after using secret techniques to improve one's cultivation. Han Qiu said, you have asked the key question. Long Haochen's innate internal spiritual power is 97. Kaier's is 100. Have you heard of the Son of Light and the Reincarnation Saintess? Slap. Ling Xiao slapped his forehead and then waved his hand at Han Qiu and Ying Suifeng. Wait a minute, Let me think. Why do I feel a little dizzy? The Son of Light has an innate internal spiritual power of 97. Reincarnation Saintess. Could it be that she inherited the legacy of the Son of Reincarnation? Han Qiu and Ing Suifeng nodded at the same time. Ling Xiao quickly came back to his senses. He looked at Long Haochen and then at Kai Er. The look in his eyes was like that of a big bad wolf looking at a little lamb. When he looked at Long Haochen, there was obvious greed. Old Han. Before Ling Xiao could say 2 words, he was interrupted by Han Qiu. Don't go on. Don't hurt our friendship. You know it's impossible. Ling Xiao said angrily. I haven't said anything yet. And you already know it? Han Qiu snorted and said, Not just you. Even if Old Ling asked, I wouldn't agree. No one in the Knights Templars would agree. I've told you everything you want to know. Hurry up and talk about the unreal paradise. You should know what the Son of Light and the Reincarnation Saintess mean to the Alliance. When they grow up, it may be the day we fight back against the demons. Ling Xiao touched his chest with his hand and took a deep breath. The greed for Long Haochen in his eyes gradually disappeared. When he looked at Long Haochen again, the seriousness on his face had disappeared. He said with a smile, Haochen, I heard you were a guardian knight. What do you think about healing? Han Qiu was furious. Ling Xiao, you old thing. If you do this again, I'll complain to old Ling. Ling Xiao glanced at him and said, Go ahead. Let's see if the old man will care about you. I'll be straightforward. Haochen, as long as you are willing to give up the knight position and come to the Temple of the Priests. I'll make the decision now. The position of Deputy Temple Master of the Temple of the Priests is yours. And I guarantee you will break through to the 9th step within 10 years and directly inherit my position. The group healing of a 9th step saint can save tens of thousands of people. What's so good about a knight? He didn't give up because of Han Qiu's words. The Son of Light. This was the Son of Light, a powerful talent that had never appeared in the Alliance. Han Qiu suddenly didn't say anything. He just watched his performance from aside. Long Haochen said apologetically, I'm sorry, old Ling. I can't promise you. I will only be a knight. Ling Zhao's veins popped out on his forehead. He said loudly, 15 years. I'll let you break through to the 9th step in 15 years. I'll let the old man use the ether empowerment technique to help you increase your spiritual power faster. I'll also find you at least 3 top-notch spiritual stoves. After 15 years, you'll only be 30 years old. The Temple of the Priests will help you fight for the Temple League leader position. How about it? Ing Suifeng said unhappily, Enough, old Ling. It's no use. Ask him who his father is first. Looks like we really shouldn't have told you. Ling Xiao was stunned. He asked Long Haochen anxiously, Your father is? Long Haochen said, My father is Long Xingwu. Ling Zhao's body swayed. His face was clearly pale. He slapped his forehead out of habit. Looks like I really should go back to the Alliance. I should let go of everything. If I'm with her, maybe our children will also have powerful talents. Han Qiu snorted coldly. If you go find her with this attitude, I guarantee you'll die a horrible death. Ling Xiao quickly restrained his expression and returned to his previous serious look. I didn't say anything, and I won't admit it. All right, let's get down to business. I suggest that these 2 children enter the illusory paradise. For the sake of the illusory paradise, the demons mobilized an army of millions to attack it at all costs. It's obvious how important it is. The illusory paradise is a magical place. It's in a forest 120 miles north of the Southern Guard Pass. We call it the Illusory Shrine. It's said that the Illusory Shrine is a palace left in the human world by the goddess of nature. It automatically absorbs the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The Illusory Shrine opens once every 100 years. Those who enter will obtain great opportunities, but they will also encounter dangers equal to the opportunities. At this point, Ling Xiao slightly paused. He looked at Long Haochen and Kai Er and said, This opportunity is especially important for you youngsters. This is because the treasure produced in the illusory paradise is the spiritual stove. Long Haochen held Kai Er's hand and wrote his words on Kai Er's palm. The moment the words spiritual stove came out, Long Haochen and Kai Er were slightly shocked. It could be said that the spiritual stove was extremely important for them to have strength that surpassed their peers. A place that could produce spiritual stoves was enough to be called a holy land. When Long Haochen saw Ling Xiao pause, he couldn't help but ask, "Grandpa Ling, how many spiritual stoves can appear in the illusory paradise every time?" Ling Xiao said, "It's different every time, but there usually aren't more than 20 kind of combinations. Every combination will only have one. The stronger the spiritual stove, the more difficult the test. The most important thing to remember when entering the illusory paradise is not to be greedy. Otherwise, even if you pass the test, you will die without a doubt." Han Q asked doubtfully, "What do you mean? Why do we still have to die to pass the test?" Ling Xiao slightly smiled and said, "Why is the old man willing to let the demons go? He must be confident. We have enough experience to make the demons return in failure. Old Han, let me ask you, if you saw dozens of spiritual stoves in front of you, what would you do?" Han Q said without hesitation, "Naturally, I would do everything possible to collect them." Ling Xiao said, "That's right. That's the case. The spiritual stoves in the illusory shrine can be collected at will. You can collect as much as you want. The test is at the back. In other words, when you're satisfied with collecting a large number of spiritual stoves, your test will follow. The intensity of the test will be determined by the number of spiritual stoves you obtain. Moreover, it will increase exponentially. Moreover, it's not just a test. There's an even more terrifying test. Anyone who is greedy will die without a burial place in the end. The two that the old man gave you are dream gems produced by the illusory paradise. With these things, if you encounter a crisis that you can't handle, you can use the dream gem to immediately escape. There will definitely be people guarding outside the shrine. Therefore, I still suggest that you go in and give it a try. Although you may already have spiritual stoves, the spiritual stoves produced by the illusory shrine can be said to be of the highest quality. Moreover, there will even be spiritual stoves that we don't know about. What's more important is the most terrifying obstacle that I just mentioned. That is also the greatest opportunity in fantasy paradise." At this point, his eyes revealed a trace of coldness. As for the demons, 10 of them will go in. If 1 or 2 of them can come out alive, they'll be lucky. The Southern Guard Pass and the demons quickly contacted each other. After a series of negotiations, the two sides finally reached an agreement. As for what benefits the humans obtained from the demons during the negotiations, only the higher-ups knew. One could imagine, due to the victory of the Southern Guard Pass defense, this time's punishment wouldn't be light. For Long Haochen, he didn't care at all about how the Temple League and the demons would negotiate. He also didn't need to know how the Temple League would allocate the spots to enter the illusory shrine. He only knew that he and Kai would each have a spot, and that was enough. In these 3 days, Long Haochen was exceptionally busy. His companions and familiar monster hunters visited him, as well as the military representatives from the Southern Guard Pass. All of them left him overwhelmed. His actions were fully acknowledged by the military, and the reward of 50,000 merit points was naturally in place. However, for Long Haochen, there was something more important in his heart. After learning about the specific situation inside the illusory shrine from Ling Xiao, he made a bold decision. The treasure inside the illusory shrine was a spiritual stove. Who would want to have one? For the sake of his plan, Long Haochen told Han Q that he would take his companions into seclusion until the illusory shrine opened. Chapter 100. Although the Southern Pass had lost more than 100,000 people, they still had plenty of manpower. With the help of the civilians, the city gradually regained its liveliness. Only a few of the 40 or so Monster Hunters teams that came to participate in the war stayed in the main hall of the Temple of the Priests. The rest were given other accommodations. Long Haochen and the others were naturally among those who stay behind. In a quiet room in the basement of the Temple of the Priests, Long Haochen gathered his companions in his room. The Temple of the Priests treated them well. Not only did they provide a quiet room for them to rest in, but they also provided a small arena for them to practice their skills. It was about 300 square meters. "Boss, why do we have to stay here to practice? Aren't we here to carry out a mission?" Sima Xian asked with a puzzled expression. He had the most fun killing in the battle that day. It was the first time the ball of light had appeared on the battlefield, and even he did not expect it to have such an effect. Originally, Sima Xian's strength was ranked the lowest in the team. Not to mention Long Haochen and Kair. He was also inferior to Wang Yuan and Han Yu. However, after changing his equipment, in this battle, Han Yu and Wang Yuan combined couldn't kill as many devils as he alone. Wherever the ball of light went, it could be said that it was invincible. He naturally hoped that he could continue to show off his skills on the battlefield. Long Haochen said, "We shouldn't be fighting with the demons for the time being. If there's no war, our mission will naturally end. However, there's something more important for us to complete." He immediately explained the situation of the Dream Temple and the negotiations between the Alliance and the demons in detail. Spiritual stoves? There's actually a good place that produces a large number of spiritual stoves. Not only was Sima Xian pleasantly surprised, but the others also could not remain calm. Those were spiritual stoves. How could Long Haochen become the core of the team and defeat opponents that were stronger than him time and time again? Apart from his own strength, the two spiritual stoves that he possessed also played a crucial role. It could be said that without Long Haochen and Kair's 4 spiritual stoves, the strength of the 21st general-level monster hunters would be reduced by half. No matter what profession they were, it would be strange if they could remain calm after hearing the news about the spiritual stove. Lin Xian flicked his long hair and chuckled. "Boss, you and Vice Leader have to work hard. It's best if you can get a few spiritual stoves. I'm not picky. As long as it's fire elemental, I'm fine with it." Chun Inger snorted disdainfully. "How shameless. All of them? With brother medicine. Your medicine almost killed the regiment commander, and you still have the nerve to say that?" Lin Xian snorted and said, "I made a mistake in my medicine. I accept the punishment. However, if you give me a fire-type spiritual stove, it will definitely make my spiritual power even purer. In the future, when he refined the medicine, the effect would naturally be better. I'm thinking for the sake of the team." Sima Xian laughed. "Don't give me that. Who can't contribute more to the team if they have a spiritual stove? However, can spiritual stoves be brought around so easily? Stop dreaming. We're still hoping that Boss and Vice Leader can have a spiritual stove." Seeing that his companions could not hide their desire, Long Haochen said, "It's not like you guys don't have a chance to get a spiritual stove." The 5 of them widened their eyes almost at the same time. It was a little strange. Long Haochen said, "This time, Kair and I will each take a spot to enter the Dream Shrine." When Grandpa Ling explained the situation of the Dream Shrine to us in detail, he mentioned that those who can enter can't have more than 10,000 spiritual power points. Otherwise, they will suffer from the backlash of the Dream Shrine. This means that the other candidates to enter the shrine should have a cultivation base of level 6 and try to get as close to 10,000 spiritual power points as possible. I reckon that they will be chosen from other monster hunters. Our group has already taken 2 spots. The chances of being chosen are very small. However, this is an opportunity that only comes once in 100 years. I hope that everyone can get it. That's why I want to bring you guys in. I asked Grandmaster to go into seclusion. One reason is to increase everyone's strength in this month. At the same time, I also want to see if my idea can succeed. If it succeeds, then you guys can follow me and Kair into the Dream Shrine." As he spoke, Long Haochen had already released a spiritual light barrier to envelop his companions, isolating them from the outside world. My idea is very simple. That is eternal sleep. When they were cultivating in the holy city, because everyone had taken the Holy Spirit pill, they had been constantly increasing their own cultivation bases. Before they could enter the Tower of Eternity to cultivate, they were called up for this forced war mission. Now that they heard Long Haochen mention the Tower of Eternity again, everyone's expression suddenly became interesting. Everyone's face showed that they were eager to try it out. Wang Yuan said, "Leader, what you mean is that when you and the deputy leader enter the Dream Shrine, we should stay in the Tower of Eternity. After we enter the shrine, then let us out?" Long Haochen nodded and said, "That's right. That's why we first have to test the feasibility of this situation. Grandpa Ling said that there is no limit to the number of people who can enter the dream shrine at one time. However, there are usually around 20 types of spiritual stoves produced, and there's only one of each type. If there are too many people entering, it will cause a loss of balance. We might even face danger without any rewards. This time, the agreement with the demons is that each side will send 10 people into the shrine. In other words, if I bring you guys in, we have to work hard to snatch food from the demons' mouths. At the same time, we have to do our best not to be discovered by our own people. And the problems we are facing now are mainly focused on the dream shrine and the Tower of Eternity itself. First of all, if you guys stay in the Tower of Eternity, as the person who activated the Tower of Eternity, will it affect you guys if I return to the real world? Secondly, will the Tower of Eternity be able to release you guys in the dream shrine? The third point was whether the dream shrine would reject the Tower of Eternity. We can solve the first problem through experiments. However, if we solve this problem, we can't predict the next two problems in advance. Therefore, I can't guarantee that I will definitely bring you guys into the dream shrine. Serene laughed and said, "Boss, it's already a pleasant surprise for us to have a chance. Even if we don't succeed, it doesn't matter. Anyway, if you and the deputy leader become stronger, we can also become stronger." His words were not completely flattering. It could be said that without the leadership of Long Houchin and Kair, how could their newly formed monster hunters have so many merits to improve everyone's strength? It seemed that Long Houchin had obtained a lot of benefits, but they had also obtained a lot, right? Sima Xian and Chuning had advanced to the 5th order one after another, and now everyone's strength was above 5th order level 5. This speed of improvement was absolutely shocking. At the Monster Hunters Mission Center, as long as you had enough merits, who could say that there wasn't anything better than the Holy Spirit pill? The stronger Long Houchin and Kai, the more difficult the missions they could lead them to, and the more merits they would naturally obtain. Therefore, what Sima Xian said was agreed by everyone. Long Houchin said, "Then let's hurry up and carry out the experiment. Even if you guys can't enter the dream shrine with me and Kai, this time, everyone's strength can still be improved in the Tower of Eternity. The sooner we break through to the 6th order, the sooner we can advance to the commander level. Everyone adjust yourselves. We'll immediately enter the Tower of Eternity." "Wait a minute." Han Yu, who hadn't spoken until now, suddenly said, "Boss, this is the main hall of the Temple of the Priests. If we enter the Tower of Eternity from here, will we be discovered by the aura of death?" Although Han Yu was very arrogant at the beginning, there was a certain reason for it. In addition to his own strength, his mind was also the most meticulous. It was a pity that he met Long Houchin at that time. His brilliance had always been concealed, and now, as Long Houchin's retainer knight, he naturally had to consider for Long Houchin and help him fill in the gaps. Long Houchin shook his head and said, "I've already experimented when I was in the Holy City. Because Electrolux is the holy law of necromancy, his own attribute is light. Therefore, when entering the Tower of Eternity, only a weak light element will be emitted." This point was probably thought of when he was building the Tower of Eternity. "Everyone, stand in a circle around me. When we're teleported to the Tower of Eternity, don't act rashly and listen to my orders." To be honest, at this time, Long Houchin was a little nervous. After all, this was related to the safety of his companions. Therefore, when he said the last sentence, his expression was especially serious. Han Yu and the other four nodded, changed into their equipment, and stood in a circle around Long Houchin. Long Houchin himself also put on the brilliant holy armor. With the brilliant holy shield in his left hand and Kair in his right, he slowly closed his eyes. A soft golden light rippled out from his chest like water. That was the light that belonged to the eternal melody. These days, whether Long Houchin was in a coma or after waking up, the eternal melody had always maintained a high temperature. Fortunately, Long Houchin himself was already used to it. He understood more and more about the strangeness of this necklace. That day, when the rank 8 moon devil that he severely injured shouted the 2 words artifact before he left, he heard it. Because at the moment when he was unconscious, His whole body seemed to have entered a special spiritual power. It was also this spiritual power that protected him. Obviously, it was the eternal melody, or rather, the eternal sleep. Was it really an artifact? However, was the eternal melody or the Tower of Eternity an artifact? Long Houchen was more inclined to the latter. Without a doubt, from everything that the Tower of Eternity had shown, Long Houchen felt that it deserved to be called an artifact. There were too many mystical things waiting for him to explore there. Moreover, this time, his repulsion towards the Tower of Eternity had lessened a little. It could be said that without the Tower of Eternity, even if he didn't die, he would probably lose a layer of skin. However, for the eternal melody to be able to be the key to the Tower of Eternity, it itself was quite mystical. There was only one reason for the high temperature, and that was because there were too many casualties from a war here. The eternal melody was absorbing souls. What surprised Long Houchen even more was that it had been absorbing souls and was emitting a high temperature at Long Houchen's chest. However, even a rank 9 powerhouse like Ling Xiao did not notice it when he was healing him. This was quite strange. The light emitted by the eternal melody became stronger and stronger, and under the control of Long Houchen's will, a golden halo appeared beneath his feet. Following that, the golden halo quickly shifted and appeared beneath Kair, Hanyu, Wang Yuanyuan, Sun Ma Xian, Lin Xian, and Chen. The 7 golden halos shone with a dazzling radiance, and traces of mystical golden patterns quickly linked the 7 halos together. At this moment, a blinding white light burst forth from Long Houchen's chest, and everyone subconsciously closed their eyes because of the blinding light. None of them saw a snowflake-shaped formation floating above their heads, and in the next instant, the light suddenly converged towards a point in the middle, until it completely disappeared, and even Long Houchen and the rest disappeared without a trace. No one knew that the 21st general-level monster hunters, who were in seclusion, had all disappeared just like that. Everyone, including Long Houchen, had a strange feeling. It was as if something was pressing down on their bodies, making them unable to move at all. Everything around them was distorted white, and they could not open their eyes at all. The immense spatial pressure caused them to temporarily lose the ability to breathe. Among the 7 of them, the one who felt it the most was not Long Houchen, but Wang Yuanyuan. Wang Yuanyuan had the rare space attribute, and during the process of teleportation, she suddenly had some enlightenment. After all, not everyone could experience this kind of teleportation. Normally, a space magician had to be at least at the 8th level to be able to master teleportation. Moreover, it required extremely complicated incantations, and there was a limit to the teleportation distance. Long Houchen relied on the connection between the eternal melody and the Tower of Eternity to teleport to a fixed point. Wang Yuanyuan was not the initiator, so she was completely a bystander to feel the strangeness of this teleportation. If anyone could see her at this moment, they would see a faint layer of silver light appearing on her body, slightly twisting and fluctuating. The entire teleportation did not take long, and after about 10 seconds, the lights suddenly converged. Everyone felt their bodies sink, and when the blinding white light disappeared, they felt like they were standing on solid ground. They opened their eyes subconsciously, and with the exception of Long Houchen, everyone felt an irrepressible fear in their hearts. The terrifying aura of death covered the sky and the earth, and the aura of death that would produce endless coldness, silence, and despair in their hearts made their hair stand on end. They subconsciously tightened their bodies and at the same time raised the weapons in their hands. At this moment, a faint circle of golden light spread out from Long Houchen's body. It was a very simple skill, Holy Light Barrier. The Holy Light Barrier with ripples of light easily covered all 7 of them, and it also isolated the aura of death from the outside world. The aura of death hit the Holy Light Barrier, and the eternal melody on Long Houchen's chest was immediately activated. A majestic aura spread out from Long Houchen's body, and the aura of death immediately weakened. At least, it did not dare to attack his Holy Light Barrier anymore. In the memory that Scourge Electrolux left for Long Houchin, there was a special way for him to lead his companions here. It was very simple. Use an area of effect skill to cover his companions. Any area of effect skill would do, because as long as they used the skill, they would be attacked by the aura of death, and it would naturally trigger the aura of the eternal melody. At this time, the 7 of them were still in a cave, and the surrounding situation was exactly the same as the Cave of Dread that Long Houchin had entered. However, everyone knew that this was definitely not the Cave of Dread, and it was very likely that this was not the holy demon continent that they were in. In the air, countless wraiths floated slowly. When they felt the aura emitted from their bodies, these wraiths had the desire to attack. However, with the majestic aura emitted by the eternal melody, the wraiths suddenly seemed to be greatly frightened and immediately fled far away. They did not even dare to approach the Tower of Eternity for the time being. It was the first time that the others saw the Tower of Eternity, and they all let out a gasp of surprise, especially when they saw the wraiths. The fear in their hearts deepened. However, they were also the young elites of the Temple League, and with the protection of Long Houchin, they quickly calmed down. In fact, they were not the only ones who were surprised. Long Houchin was just as shocked. This was because the Tower of Eternity that appeared in front of him had changed, and it was different from what he had seen before. The last time he saw the Tower of Eternity, it was still emitting a gray light, and the wraiths were also gray. However, this time, Long Houchin was surprised to find that the Tower of Eternity had turned white. That's right, both the body and the light it emitted were actually white. However, this white was not of the light attribute, but the pure aura of death. Even the vengeful spirits had turned white. Moreover, the number of vengeful spirits had doubled. Could it be that the Tower of Eternity had evolved? Long Houchin suddenly had doubts in his heart. In the face of this situation, he had to use his sealed memories to search. For a long time, because of his inner rejection, he deliberately did not think about what had happened in the Tower of Eternity, so that he would not remember the memories that were imprinted in the depths of his memory that could not be eliminated. At this time, under the influence of his mind, he quickly found the answer. As he expected, the changes in the Tower of Eternity actually came from the war at Southern Pass. The existence and operation of the Tower of Eternity required a huge amount of soul energy as the foundation. The original Tower of Eternity was not known what method Sleeping Disaster Electrolux used to solidify the terrifying soul energy of Pang Tian, which was likely related to his own soul. The energy of the Tower of Eternity itself was strong enough. However, after tens of thousands of years of tempering, although the Tower of Eternity could absorb soul energy from the outside world, the absorption was limited, especially after Long Houchin opened it. Its soul energy even leaked to a certain extent. However, when Long Houchin arrived at Southern Pass, the souls of countless humans and demons were transferred here through the eternal melody on Long Houchin's chest, thus completely awakening the tower and replenishing it with enough energy. In the memory, there were some very profound things that Long Houchin could not understand, and there were even some memories that were sealed as if he was not strong enough to see them. However, he was still shocked. Although he had a strong psychological resistance to necromancers, he had to admit that Sleeping Disaster Electrolux was an absolute genius. The memory told him that one of the few things that Electrolux was most proud of in his life was the use of soul energy, which Electrolux himself called soul circulation. In other words, after giving him enough soul energy, he could use a special method to make the soul energy self-circulate, thus achieving the effect of producing new soul energy. It was just like how a man and a woman together would give birth to a new life. This was also an important reason why the Tower of Eternity still had such great power after tens of thousands of years. At this moment, after receiving the injection of Pang Tian's soul energy, the Tower of Eternity was truly awakened and possessed its true power. How do you guys feel? Sima Xian asked the others in a low voice. At this time, Wang Yuanyuan was still immersed in her understanding of the law of space and did not say a word, but Han Yu, who had always been calm, blurted out, "Insignificant. In front of this Tower of Eternity, I feel very insignificant." His words were approved by the others, and Lin Xian said without hesitation, "Me too. I feel like a vengeful spirit here, and I'm not even as strong as a vengeful spirit. It's really terrifying." One can imagine how powerful and terrifying this holy law of necromancy was when he was alive. At this time, Long Haochen had already recovered and turned to his companions. "Everyone, follow me closely. Do not leave the range of the holy light cover. Let's enter the tower." Everyone nodded. It could be said that after coming to this strange world, Long Haochen was their only pillar. Long Haochen hugged Kai tightly, but was surprised to find that the temperature of Kai Er's body seemed to have dropped a little. He hurriedly wrote in her palm to ask. To Long Haochen's surprise, the answer that Kai replied to him was, "I like it here very much. My spiritual stove of samsara and Sora Samsara seem to like it here very much. Here, my cultivation speed will increase greatly." This answer surprised Long Haochen, but he was smart and quickly found some answers. What was Kai Er's attribute? It had always been a mystery in everyone's heart. Long Haochen had never asked her, and she never told him. If she felt comfortable and close here, then there was no doubt that Kai Er's attribute was related to the energy of death. It was very likely that her attribute was death or killing. This was probably the reason why she was not willing to tell him. After a short moment of surprise, Long Haochen led the group slowly towards the Tower of Eternity. Looking at the vengeful spirits that quickly scattered and dodged, the fear in the hearts of the 21st general level monster hunters gradually disappeared and was replaced by excitement and curiosity towards new things. The door of the Tower of Eternity was open, of course. It was open for Long Haochen. As for whether there would be people coming here in this new world, there was no need to worry at all. The vengeful spirits outside were the best guards. If anyone wanted to enter the Tower of Eternity under their attack, they would have to have Haoyue as well. As soon as they stepped into the door of the Tower of Eternity, the surrounding energy of death instantly became strong. However, at this time, Long Haochen removed his holy light shield. Entering the Tower of Eternity, the threat to their lives had been eliminated. Since they were here to train, then his partners must adapt to the situation in the Tower of Eternity. Otherwise, how could they fight? Trembling and trembling became inevitable for everyone, even Kai Er. However, Long Haochen, who was holding Kai, felt that her trembling was due to excitement, and it was an instinctive excitement of her body. Kai even hurriedly pulled Long Haochen's hand and wrote on his palm, "I want to train for a while. I have a feeling of enlightenment." After saying this, she sat down directly on the spot, put her hands flat on her knees, palms facing up, and pinched a strange sign with her fingers. Kai was fine. She wants to train here for a while. Everyone, stay where you are and don't move. Adapt to the energy of death here as soon as possible. There's one thing you must remember. Don't step forward. As long as we move forward, our training will begin. It will be hard to resist. The death energy in the Tower of Eternity was not actually stronger than the outside, but it was pure. The pure and impurities of the death energy itself was not aggressive, but it could easily bring a sense of oppression to everyone. More importantly, apart from Long Haochen, no one else could feel the existence of elements that were of the same attribute as them. In other words, they could not recover their spiritual power. Of course, this did not include Kai, who was already sitting on the ground. From her gentle eyebrows, it could be seen that she was very used to the environment here. Long Haochen said to his companions, "The situation here is very special. Later, I will demonstrate what kind of training we will be going through. Your spiritual power cannot recover, so we will be training here for a while. Then we will return to our world to let everyone recover their spiritual power, and then come back. Watch carefully." As he said this, he raised his right hand, and a blue-golden light shone. Blue rain and hibiscus of light had already appeared in his hands. With the radiant holy shield in front of his body, Long Haochen took 3 firm steps forward. These 3 steps just happened to take him to the place where he was in the first training. Suddenly, 2 white lights drilled out of the ground as if a mechanism had been triggered. it was still the same two huge skeletons with a shield on the left and a sword on the right, with the three halos of courage, faith, and power attack. They charged straight at Long Houchin. This time, Long Houchin did not have Hao Yue's help. However, he was also not the Long Houchin from the first time he came here. Feeling the powerful aura emitted by these two skeletons, Han Yu, Sima Xian, and the rest's complexion immediately changed. 6th rank. This was clearly a 6th rank. They had just entered the tower's door, and they were already facing 6th rank opponents. No wonder Long Houchin told them not to act blindly without thinking. Moreover, the light attribute aura on the skeletons also made them greatly shocked. Long Houchin was already prepared. A dense, liquid-like golden light instantly flashed and rose. The pair of wings, flickering with the light of the rising sun, appeared on his back once again. Spiritual power transformed into wings, the symbol of 6th rank. However, spiritual wings could only be a symbol here, because when Long Houchin tried to flap them, he found that he was unable to fly. Of course, the function of spiritual wings was not as simple as flight. At the same time, it also had the function of gathering spiritual power. Relying on the eternal melody in his chest and his spiritual aperture, his current spiritual power recovery speed could only be described as terrifying. However, inside this Tower of Eternity, the light elemental fairy Yuting was still unable to appear. It seemed that she was being suppressed by the Tower of Eternity. Without Hao Yue's restraint, the two skeletons rushed towards Long Houchin together. Moreover, they were even cooperating with each other. One of the skeleton's eyes flashed with two clusters of golden flames. The bone blade in its hand also seemed to have the intention of turning golden. As for the other skeleton, it directly charged towards Long Houchin and slashed down with its bone blade. They were actually cooperating? The skeleton whose bone blade had turned golden was obviously going to use the Azura slash. Under such circumstances, how could Long Houchin let it succeed? A strong golden and blue light shone in his right hand. In the next moment, two dragon roars sounded at the same time. One was loud and the other was low, but they emitted a strange vibration. One gold and one blue. Two mini dragons shot out like lightning. In an instant, they collided with the skeleton that was preparing to use the Azura slash. In the midst of the loud bang, the skeleton's bone shield and the bone blade in its hand, which were trying to resist, were instantly shattered. The bones in its chest were also shattered. However, it still did not fall. Unfortunately, the evolved version of luminous hibiscus thorn was not something it could contend with. The pressure of the light dragon and water dragon entangling and binding directly crushed its broken body. A ball of white light then flew into Long Houchin's chest. After using luminous hibiscus thorn again, Long Houchin discovered that the biggest feature of this skill after its evolution was not the increase in attack power. To be precise, its attack power was only slightly increased. When facing a skeleton at its peak state, it would not be able to directly kill it. The most important thing was its evolved restriction ability. This was the aspect that Long Houchin was most lacking in. Therefore, it was undoubtedly of great help to him. However, Long Houchin did not expect that after trapping the enemy, the light dragon and water dragon's contraction power would be so great. After all, this was only the second time he used the evolved luminous hibiscus thorn. At the same time as the luminous hibiscus thorn was released, the other skeleton's attack arrived. The glorious sacred shield technique was activated. Divine defense block. Clang. There was a loud sound. Long Houchin did not move an inch. Instead, it was the skeleton's bone blade that was shaken up. The current Long Houchin was not so easy to bully. He was already rank 6. Moreover, he had changed to the glorious sacred shield, a piece of glorious equipment. The luminous hibiscus thorn returned at the right time. Next, it was time for Long Houchin to perform. The demon destruction flash erupted. Countless light spots transformed into dazzling halos that covered the sky and covered the earth. Although the skeleton also had a bone shield, its biggest weakness was that its equipment was weaker and its defense was not strong. Under the attack of the Demon Destruction Flash, it was impossible for it to release such a powerful attack skill like Azura Slash. After the Demon Destruction Flash, Long Houchin connected it with the sacred sword that was released by Graft. Amidst the dragon's roar, the sacred sword version of the Rising Dragon Strike erupted and directly crushed the skeleton's body. This time, the golden light that represented the cultivation method of Azura Slash did not appear again. However, that white light still flowed into Long Houchin's body. Without a doubt, this was 20 spiritual energy points. However, Long Houchin naturally would not waste it by absorbing it at this time. It only took a few breaths' time to get rid of the two skeletons. After advancing to rank 6, Long Houchin's overall strength had obviously increased tremendously, especially his individual combat power. Without Hao Yue's help, he successfully got rid of the two skeletons. However, at the same time, it was not easy for him. Since he had nothing to worry about, he could be said to have launched an all-out attack. He used both of his trump cards, Luminous Rain Hibiscus Thorn and Flower Graft Wood, to prevent the two skeletons from exploding with tyrannical attack power. However, even so, the general rank 21 monster hunters and the others still clearly saw the tyrannical strength of the skeletons. Long Houchin's current problem was the rank 6 skills. Although he had his father's ring of inheritance, because he had just advanced to rank 6, he had not had the time to understand some of the rank 6 skills, let alone the Guardian Knight skills. He could only learn them when he returned to Knights Templars. Of course, he could not wait that long. He prepared to look for the real Grandmaster, Han Q, to learn the skills in the next few days. Secret skills could not be taught casually, but normal rank 6 skills could be taught. Did everyone see it clearly? Long Houchin turned to his companions and explained the use of the white light. One light could increase 10 spiritual energy points. Even for Long Houchin, it would take a long time to train, let alone the others. They did not have the physique of the Son of Light. It was not difficult to adapt to the death energy. After all, it was not aggressive. It was just that not being able to recover spiritual energy made everyone feel a little uncomfortable. After his companions expressed that there was no problem, Long Houchin nodded and said, "Continue forward. I do not know how strong the trial we will face is, but I will do my best to protect everyone. If you really can't resist, quickly retreat. As long as you retreat to a certain range, the skeletons will not continue to attack. Moreover, every time we leave here and return, the trial will also start from the first two skeletons." Sima Xian shook his vigor ball of light and said, "Boss, let's start. I can't wait anymore." Long Houchin nodded and said, "Go." As he said that, he walked to the front, while the other 5 maintained their usual battle formation and advanced forward. Long Houchin's speed was very slow. The trial had to be triggered one by one, otherwise, if too many were triggered, it would be a disaster for everyone. Continuing forward, after about 5 steps, Long Houchin's heart suddenly felt a sense of danger, and he subconsciously held the shield in his hand horizontally, only to hear a light ding sound. A sharp spiritual energy almost penetrated the brilliant Holy Shield's defense. Fortunately, the Holy Shield technique on Long Houchin's shield was activated in time, and he was able to block the attack. An illusory figure flashed and disappeared. Long Houchin was shocked, and he shouted loudly. Blue Rain and Hibiscus of Light were released in his hands. At this time, a groan came from behind Long Houchin. Wang Yuanyuan's body fell back, and there was a deep scratch on her armor. Assassin, it was actually an assassin, and there was more than one. The demon-killing flash missed, and the large area coverage actually did not hit the enemy.